Wow, this is taking very long.
I was glad when they said to me, "Come and let's go up to the house of the Lord." I was glad when they said to me, "Come to the house of the Lord." Standing here in your gates again, to Jerusalem. Oh, I was glad when they said to me, "Come to the house of the Lord." Standing here in your gates again, up to Jerusalem, up to Jerusalem, up to Jerusalem. Jerusalem, peace, Adonai, Shalom. Blessing be yours, God's peace within your walls. I was glad when they said to me, "Come to the house of the Lord." Standing here in your gates again, come to Jerusalem. Oh, I was glad when they said to me, "Come to the house of the Lord." To the house of the Lord.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Torah Before Shabbat TV. As always, this is your brother Jose, and as always, with my brothers here with me. So, just wanted to send a shout out to everyone that is with us on the chat, and I'm very happy and I'm praising Yah forever. So, we have a new brother today called Brother Butch, and we welcome him to Torah Shabbat family. And as always, everyone can introduce yourself. Let's start with Scott.
Yeah, hi, Shalom everybody. My name is Scott Drew, and I've been on Torah Before Shabbat TV for the last couple of weeks. Just enjoying fellowship and learning a whole bunch from some great guests, and look forward to doing some more of that tonight.
Awesome. Okay, Brother Sterling.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming on. I've been excited about getting Butch on because I've been following him on Facebook. He's got a lot of great research, and I just think it's going to be great conversation hearing Drew and Toby and Butch have a conversation because those guys are very studied in the calendar and they're all passionate about it. So I'm eager to hear the discussion tonight. So
Amen. Go ahead, Brother Drew Bishop.
Drew, thanks for having me on again. I look forward to the discussion with everybody here. I'm sure it's going to be a wide range of topics discussed tonight. So let's get it started.
Okay. And Toby, how are you, Brother Toby?
last but not least.
Shalom, shalom. Yeah, no, I'm
Shalom.
excited to be here. I can't wait to see what we fall into and roll around in. It sounds like a good time. I do want to say that I know as chill as we are right now, you know, sometimes we can be pretty passionate, but you know, like we're all here, you know, splitting hairs on subjects that most people don't even know, but like don't think that I'm not going to throw down. So like this is going to be a good conversation. Like all of us are super studied and we love this subject, and we're all friends, you know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a good time.
Amen.
Okay.
And last but not least, say hello, Brother Butch.
Well, hello there. I want to thank you all for the invite. It's kind of rare for me to kind of go on a group or something like that and have an audio call like this, so it's kind of nice. And by the way, I thoroughly enjoyed that music. I haven't heard that song in a long time. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I love Paul Wilbur. It's one of my favorites. But we're gonna have quite a few other music as I'm pretty sure as we go further. I do want to put a live worship on Shabbat. So that's I'm looking forward to getting that set up pretty soon. So yeah. Okay, so guys, as always, I just hosted, and and you guys feel free to talk whatever.
One thing I want to mention is that I have a shared drive and I have a lot of Butch's everything that Butch has shared with me. I put in there, and so people will have access. If somebody wants access, I'll post a link in the. I'll give it to you, Jose, so you can post it up because it didn't work in the comments last night. I had to go back in there and redo it, but I'll talk about that later. But Toby, I sent you and Drew like a couple of documents. Did you get to look at any of those, or did you see them? That was last night. You might not have. It was late, so he had one on the Ducat, but couple things. I don't know. Butch, was there something that you wanted to start with, or anybody?
Oh, I'm just kind of along for the ride. So you guys figure out where you want to go, and I'll kind of add in my 2 cents every once in a while.
Well, I want to see some of your research and stuff and introduce it to these guys. I know one of the things was the Ducat, or you know, we're trying to see how you pronounce it, but
yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it. I always say duck, like a quack quack duck, but I don't know. I have no idea. So I'm kind of like everybody else. We're trying to figure out different words in an ancient dead language. And so we're trying to. I mean, some things are kind of obvious, but other things are not so obvious.
Look, speaking of that, this is the best part about being with a bunch of dudes like y'all. Is we can all ask questions on those finer points that we just kind of like, what you get out of that? Are y'all talking about DUQ? Like, is that the word that you're talking about? Because I was just up in some of that on this Dead Sea Scrolls stuff.
Yeah, the moon phases.
Yeah, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's the Dalet Waku.
Right.
And
and they're fighting amongst themselves on this. Like.
Well, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's in 4Q 321 and 321A. It's commonly translated as new moon. Yeah. But that is false. And in 2 of the versions that the English, like the Vermes Gais, or however it's pronounced, the Penguin Classics version, and the Michael Wise, Abegg, and Cook version, they tell in there flat out that they don't know the true meaning of that word. It's never been seen or been observed in anything that they have to date. It's the first time they've observed this word, and so they don't know the root meaning of it. And in the Wise, Ebed, and Cook version, they say right there that even in their own group, they're all divided about what the meaning of that is, and so they chose to translate it as new moon. They said that in their commentaries about those fragments. So when we look at that, there's. Go ahead.
I was going to agree. The minds that did this, they talk about their disagreements with that word, and that's why I said they're all like they're fighting amongst themselves over it, like so they. Yeah. But these guys went ahead, and I want to say that a new moon is a full moon is how they did it.
Well, they've mistakenly called that a new moon, which it's not. It's not a new moon. From the studies I went through, and I used the study edition because the study edition tells you every place that word is located in the Hebrew. The study edition is 1,300 pages, and it has English on one page and Hebrew on one page and English on the following page, and it's a 2-volume set. And so when you go into that, Sterling, go over about, I guess, go another page or two on that.
Oh, wait a minute. That's the wrong document.
Let's see.
I got to go down.
Oh, yeah, you went. Yeah. Okay. There you go. So
I'm trying to find it in here so I can show some of the arguments that they have for both sides.
Yeah. Right. Well, go ahead.
Just to illustrate, just how it
Sterling.
is,
Yeah, right there.
Charts?
Okay, you can see right there. I highlighted the red word dukkha in there. That's where it appears in the Hebrew text themselves, and that's the same places that they've translated as new moon. But I got the idea of looking at other fragments in the Dead Sea Scrolls to try to determine the usage of that, namely 4Q208, 4Q209, and 4Q317. And I came up with a consistent pattern. If it's not the new moon, if you call it the new moon, the sliver new moon, or conjunction, there's no consistency in the pattern. Now these graphs here that Sterling's showing right here, I plotted it on graphs, the 3-year pattern of that, and the red numbers on the graphs, or there's a number, it'll say 29 or 30 in the fragments, and then the duk that they've commonly called new moon, it's on these little purple squares. Now there was a few holes in it, so I had to get, but you can easily see the pattern. There's a pattern here that everything's following.
Yep.
And if you notice from the first year there, the first day, it's got a 30 there, I think. I'd have to get my charts out. I don't have my charts.
Yeah, it's 30.
Let me go to.
It's 30.
Okay. And then it goes on that one, that particular one. If it, Sterling, you're looking at it with your computer right there. Is that a 6? Does it say? Yeah, it says 16 days, and then you got the purple square, and then you have it followed by 13 days.
Right.
Okay, so it's an alternating 16 and 17 followed by 13 in almost every one of them except for the very last one. You have 14 days at the very last one, which brings it back on a 3-year cycle again. And so what I found is I seen a 3-year cycle. Well, that matches the tithe offerings, and that matches what 4Q3
21.
What the one that talks about the sign of Gemuel and the sign of Shechaniah. That's what that is. That's talking about the signs of the years of the tithes, as well as it's and that would be the moon happening on the first day every 3 years, and it so happens it is a sliver moon, not a full moon, and it's not on the first day of the year, but the full moon or the duk is not the full moon, but it is 2 days after it. And Sterling, if you can scroll all the way down to the bottom of that document, and we'll come back to some of these proofs here in a minute.
Here's 4Q319, what you're talking about with the Shekinah and Gamel.
Yeah. Stop right there. Sorry, not all the way down. I'm sorry, right there. Okay, right here. If we look here, Enoch talks about, I don't remember which chapter it is, which verse it is, and it's in here though. But Enoch talks about the day that the full moon happens. The moon is rising in the east at about the same time the sun is setting in the west. And so we can see that here is day of the full moon, but I've got written in red on the right. Then the next one down here, Enoch goes on to say in the rest of that verse, it's chapter 78, verse 13b, I call it. And he talks about the moon shines the whole night through till the sun rises over against her, and the moon is seen over against the sun. So that's talking about the moon is about to set in the west while the sun is rising in the east. It's not that day, but it's the next day that the duck happens. And it appears to me that would be the first when you can actually see the sliver shadow from the full moon. So you could actually see it waning, not waxing. And so that appears that would be, I mean, that's what all these proofs match that I put together in this document. So it would go back to proof number 1, Sterling, which was back there about where you was a minute ago. There's proof number 4. And what's real interesting is you're gaining on it.
Okay.
Okay, right there. Come on up a little farther. There we go. Oh, you're in proof 2, pardon me. There we go. Go a little farther up. Let's see the beginning of that.
Okay.
Okay, right there. Now, what's very interesting about this one is verse 2 right there. Well, first of all, it talks about the 8th night of the moon is at 4/7 light. And then it talks about the 9th night of the moon is 4.5/7 light. So it's waxing moon. It's growing in its brightness. So it's a waxing moon. But what's real interesting is at the end of verse 1 there in verse 2, it says, during this night, the sun completes its passage through all its sections of the first gate and again begins to enter its rise through its sections. Okay, there's only 2 months every year that the sun is in the first gate, namely the 9th and 10th months of the year. Everybody kind of follow that so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now the trick to figuring out which month it's talking about, but it's interesting. We'll come back to that. But the trick to figuring out which month it's talking about is it goes on to say, and it's completed its passage through all its sections. Well, if you go to Enoch, scroll down just a little bit there, Sterling. You go down there, right there, Enoch 72:25. It says, and the sun rises, and on that day from the second gate it sets in the west and in the second gate, and returns to the east to the first gate for 31 mornings, then sets in the west in the first gate. And with this, the sun has completed the divisions of its journey. That's the same thing as saying right up there in verse 2, that the sun has completed all the sections. And so that's the 9th month is when that's happening. So then if we scroll on down, well, I show how to Enoch doesn't really tell how to count up. Well, let me back up just a little bit. Enoch I need to get my book out if I can.
If it would be easier, I mean, you could share your screen, scroll through.
Actually, well, I can't. I don't know if I can get it to come up right now. Let me see if I can. Because I tried earlier and I wasn't getting a lot of things to come up and work real good yet. I mean, and like I was telling you the other day, I'm still on slow speed internet for another week anyway. So I've used up all my high speed data, so it's going to be slow. Well, Enoch talks about. Let's see if I can. I got another way to maybe pull it up if I got it here. Let me see if I can find it. Enoch talks about in chapter 75. He talks about that the moon gets all its fullness on the 14th day. I'm working from memory here. And the very next verse, it says the moon gets all its fullness on the 15th day. And then it goes to talking about the waning. And so let me see if I can see if I have it on this in this here. No, I don't have it in here. Anyway, I kind of came unprepared. Sorry, gentlemen. Enoch talks about the moon though when it's waxing. It'll say, and it must be.
What chapter did you say that was?
It's either 74 or 75, I think.
I might be able to pull it up for you real quick.
Okay. Yeah, I can't get the.
You've got 77:8 on here, and in her
okay,
womb, the moon decreases on the first
okay,
day.
Okay, so it's 77. So if anybody's
7:8.
got chapter 77 handy,
and it's on
can go to that verse and can go to that verse and the two previous verses.
You got it, Toby? If I've got it on your document, but I don't think it has the previous verses.
I'm working
yeah,
I don't have. I'm almost there.
Yeah, the two previous verses are later on in the document, down toward the end, but that'd be way down there.
This is kind of a big subject here.
Well, yeah, and I apologize because I wasn't quite prepared. I didn't get all my books ready and all that stuff. I should have had stuff ready and opened up because I didn't know where we were going to go either. So
right. Well, I mean, it was really just an introduction. We've never spoken with you before, so, and I mean,
right.
Hopefully everybody can see that you've studied this pretty well.
Yeah, well, like I said, I apologize that I didn't have all my ducks in a row before we started on this call. Let's see. I may have another method to get to it. I just gotta see if I can. You
said it was Jubilees or Enoch.
Enoch.
No, Enoch. Sorry, I guess
over here.
Maybe Jubilees, I didn't make myself clear.
You probably did. I'm just
because Jubilees only goes up to chapter 50.
Yeah, Jubilees I was gonna say, man, we got 50 chapters here.
Yeah. Yeah,
right,
that Butch, he don't know what he's talking about. If he said he don't know what he's talking about.
I was like, man, dude, this ain't right.
7 chapters.
Some just ain't adding up. It won't load the rest of my chapters of Jubilees. What's going on?
I hate it.
All right, it's almost got my Book of Enoch loaded.
Okay.
And just so everybody knows, what I'm pulling up is this is the R.H. Charles version of it.
Perfect. That's great. R.H. Charles has the best version as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I ain't trying to rep nobody as always, but the God Culture, they freely give a version of R.H. Charles's version away for free, and that's the version that this one is, and they do an excellent job of stepping through it. And it's really good. So that's what I'm pulling up right now. It's almost loaded. I'm on that.
I've got
slow speed internet.
I've got several in electronic versions. I've got 4 electronic versions, and I've got R.H. Charles and Lawrence in the book form. But like I said, I didn't get myself prepared today.
I wish that Hallelujah Scriptures had it on digital format that we could use in a setting like this, because I like theirs as well, where they restore the names and stuff like that.
Right. That would be.
It's almost there. I'm like at 98%. Here we go. All right. Let's see if I can't share my screen. You want chapter 77?
Yeah. And what verse was that, Sterling? What verse was that again? I'm trying to get mine.
77:8. 77:8.
Okay, okay, so we want to look at basically 77, 6, 7, and 8.
Let's see if this will come off like this. I'm on my. Oh. telling me I got to download a plugin or something. It's almost there.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
I got it.
Okay. I've got Enoch. I have an external hard drive. I was able to hook up to another device, and so now I've got Enoch, and I apologize. So okay, 77. It'll take me a second to get there.
All right, mine's coming up now.
I've got a question about all this, like this dew cut. So, and that priestly pattern. So we should be able to view this, right? If we know which year this is happening, because it's telling you in the third month, it should follow the pattern.
Well, you would think, but we're going to kind of go off on a different subject for a moment. We have a calendar that's 364 days, but yet we have a physical 365 and a quarter day year. And so all of us, every one of us, I mean, we all know that this is the right calendar. The problem is none of us know the exact way to implement it. And so, Sterling, I was sharing this with you the other day, and so everybody else can hear this. Basically, there's 3 different groups that keep the calendar, and of those three main groups, there's various subgroups of each one. First of all, there's one group that they keep strictly a 364-day year only, and there's a lot of pros to that version or to that method, but the con is there's 2 cons actually. Is you get the beginning of the year gets earlier and earlier and earlier in each season. And the other con to that one is the sun is not in the right gates at the right time. Okay, the second method, now bear in mind there are various subgroups of each of these that keep it a little bit variant, a little variance. The second method is those that figure out some kind of a creative way to intercalate an extra week every so often. Well, that one again, the sun won't be in the proper gates. You do have a continuous unbroken 7-day cycle, but everything else, there's so many other problems with it as well. And then the third group, they look for the equinox every year, and they start the calendar based on whether they started on the equinox or the day after. They do that. So you have the right gates, but a lot of other things, there's a lot of other cons that don't work with that. Now, generally what I tell people is the very last verse in the book of Judges, there was no king in Israel in those days, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. That's where we're at right now. None of us know exactly how to implement this calendar. And so based on what you were stating, Sterling, is we don't know when to begin, because if we're actually 364 days and everything is off out of its time, then who's to say that the beginning of the year isn't in August right now in this point in history? We don't know. Without doing the biblical chronology 100% and having it accurate, we don't know, because we can't go back to anything to determine where that is. Does that make any sense to anybody?
Of the year based on Exodus 12:2, right? That it's in the month of Abib.
Well, yeah, but bear in mind, remember Jubilees chapter 6 talks about if they ever keep the moon for a calendar, they'll get off on everything. The days, the seasons, the everything. And then Enoch 82, I think it is. Lost it. Let me get back here. Enoch 82 says, I'm almost there. Hang on just a second.
That's got pictures.
Okay. Enoch 82 says, in the days of the sinners, that the years shall be shortened, and their seed shall be tardy on their lands and fields, and all the things on the earth shall alter and shall not appear in their time. Now, maybe this is saying something a little different than what we think. Maybe it's not saying that the physical year will be shortened, but maybe it's saying that the calendar year will be shortened compared to the physical year, and everything's not appearing in its time. It's appearing in its season, but even the seasons are out of their time. This is a theory that I have. I can't prove it. We have no way to prove it right now. And if that's what that's saying, then that would say that we go back to Exodus 12, that doesn't really apply anymore. Or that the months are not even in their right time. Does any of that make sense? I mean, I'm trying to share, and that would be if you're keeping a strictly 364-day year. And here's the thing: Enoch chapter 74 talks about how in 3 years the moon has 1,062 days. Well, you add one more lunar cycle to that, and you have 1,092 days. But what's interesting is that 1,092 days that the lunar cycle would have, that matches the 3 years at 364 days for the sun cycle. And so if you had that, you would literally be able to observe every year that the tithe offerings were to be made. So I mean, it's kind of throwing a monkey wrench in the thing of trying to start at the equinox. And currently, I look for the equinox and I start there. So I have a broken 7-day Sabbath cycle, which to me is something that bothers me. But right now, I'm doing the best I know how to do. And I don't know how you all are doing. I think, Sterling, you said you were looking for the equinox every year, and then you start your count, whether it's on the equinox or the day after yourself. Didn't I understand that right?
We started on the Wednesday.
Okay, so you basically start on a Wednesday. So you're basically adding a week every so often to get it accurate.
No, that's not correct. We stay in the same week.
Okay, so you just start the following Wednesday then after the equinox.
Well, if we
or do you have sometimes where you start the Wednesday before the equinox?
Well, that's kind of one of those things where we haven't encountered it necessarily yet to where we're like adding anything to it, and we've had a few discussions on it, and we think that you ought to stay in the same week. And so if it does happen on a Friday, we're going to observe it as it happens on a Friday. But whenever we do our math, we're going to go back to the middle of the week, and that's how we're going to start. So we're still going to observe it, and we're not going to break the 7-day cycle. But whenever we do our math, we're going to intercalate our math back to the middle of the week so that we can get the calculations correct.
Okay, so that would be similar to group 2 that I talked about earlier, that you got a creative way to add an extra 7 days somewhere, even though you haven't encountered it.
Well, we just average it out the same way NASA does. That's why they got all theirs on the 20th, So it's just you're right. It's a creative way to get back to the middle of the week, and that's
I mean, here's the thing: you can know when the equinox is, and it's real simple to find the equinox. You can do it with a stick or a nail in a board. You set up your board level for about a week before the equinox, and if you have time to do this, obviously a lot of us work, so we don't have time to do this all the time. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I try to do it as often as I can. But about a week before the equinox, you go out there every hour of the day, and you mark the shadow on your board of that screw or that nail.
Yep.
At the end of the day, you connect all those marks, and what you'll find before the equinox, you'll have a hyperbolic curve, not a semicircle, but you'll have a hyperbolic curve, and each day it'll get flatter and flatter and flatter. And on the equinox, you connect all those dots, and you'll have a perfectly straight line. And then after the equinox, that hyperbolic curve starts curving the opposite direction. And that's the day of the equinox. Now, the equinox can vary up to 24 hours, depending on your geographic location on Earth. And so if you go one morning and you have a slightly curved line in the morning and a straight line in the afternoon, the next morning you'll have a straight line up until about noon, and then you'll have a curved opposite direction in the afternoon. that means that the equinox happened during the nighttime at your location. And
Nice.
I found that to be accurate. If you look up timeanddate.com, it matched, because the first time I seen it, it kind of threw me. And I kind of thought about it. I thought, well, that has to be that it happened at night. And that's exactly what happened.
So how do you get back to the middle of the week?
Well, I don't know that I do it right. I start with the equinox, and then I count the day after as weekday 4. So it doesn't match the Gregorian calendar. And here's one thing, I think you and I were talking about this the other day, Sterling, is there's evidence that once upon a time, Saturday was the first day of the week. Now, as of yet, I cannot find when they changed it from the first day of the week to the 7th day, but I do know there's evidence of that, and you can go back to ancient Roman peg calendars, stick calendars, where they had a stick they'd put in a hole, or a peg that they'd put in a hole on these calendars, and there were various statues dated from the same era that there's pictures of, and they show the planetary gods, for lack of a better term, and the order of the weekdays. And here's what Cassius Dio was one of the early church fathers, and he explained how they. Say again.
May I just for one moment, and
absolutely,
I'd just like to ask you a question. I know where you're going with it, and that's the reason why I want to ask you this question.
Okay.
Just so that we accurately represent what's actually going on here. Okay. Did the Romans come into town and leave other people alone to do whatever they wanted to do, or did they burn their information, their knowledge, their learning centers, and dominate them and set up what they said was correct?
I wouldn't know, to be honest with you. I don't really know. I do know that Cassius,
from a historical standpoint, they burned everything and they said, this is what right is. That's, it's kind of like the way our history is now, where, I mean, if you recall, we got about 500 years max of history that we get on our own core curriculum from grades 1 through, 12. Right. And it's how they say it is. And we all know that history that they give us isn't entirely correct. So I'm just trying to point out that whenever we talk about, this Roman calendar, these guys did things the way that they wanted to do things, not necessarily the way that are correct. And so having found that, it's totally reasonable, that does exist. But the thing is that we know from their culture that they purposely did things other ways because they were trying to appease one of their many gods, So I just wanted to get that out there.
I understand that. Okay, I understand that. Let me. Well, Cassius Dio, he said that came from the Egyptians. Now, I have found the Secrets of Enoch, Rabbi Eleazar, which was a 1st century rabbi, and there was one other writing I found where it basically gave this same order of how the weekdays came in the order they're in. And what they observed that the orbits that were the longest, so Saturn was the longest orbit, they assumed that was the farthest planet, and they went in order of the orbits. And what was done is they assigned each hour of the day in order to one of those planetary gods. And then when it got to the end of the moon, it started back over at Saturn. Well, when you do that, you go through that list of them. You go through 7 hours, then 14 hours, then 21 hours. You go to the 24th hour. Well, the 25th hour, which is the first hour of the next day after the Saturn, was the sun. And then you do it all over again. The 25th hour, the first hour of the next day, was the moon. And so somewhere, and that's how how the weekday names are in the order they're in. That's how we have, all of them in the order they're in. And so all I'm saying is that because of that method is how they decided to name the planetary weekday names like we have them. But in that, somewhere, Saturday was the first day. And I now Rabbi Elazar doesn't say Saturday was the first day. We know that the Hasmonean Jews were following a moon calendar. They're following. I mean, that was the not the original priesthood. And so, but they talk about Chronos, which Chronos is Saturn, and they talk about Chronos with another planet or something like that, and that's how they decide that their first day of the week or whatever. But they're given the same order, and I just anyway, I kind of went off on a rabbit trail from where we went, I guess. But based on that, see, we don't really know where the Sabbath day is. I mean, we could assume it's Saturday. We do have some writings, some Roman writings that talk about how they went on the day called Sabbath.
What about all the evidence that all the different languages say?
Okay, so I don't have it in front of me to use it as I'm gonna like I'm putting it up here right now, but I think that there is actually a whole lot of empirical evidence. There's a man named Joseph Dumont who has done the legwork for this. He has over 80 proofs of when the Sabbath is, when the first year is, when the seventh year is, and when the Sabbath day is, and when the Jubilee is, and he has it basically written in stone. There's one of them's at the Israeli at an Israeli museum, in Jerusalem.
I'm familiar with Joseph Dumont's work. I would say he's got the Jubilees off because I can see some of them that he doesn't even record and he has them off. I mean, his Sabbath years are correct. And then the archaeological evidence that he presents is basically the tombstone, the Hebrew tombstone epitaphs. And I have that list. There's 30 of them that's been found, and out of those, there's about 26 that have been translated. And so I know about those. And when I've been doing the biblical chronology, I came up with that as the Sabbath years. So he's got that right. He doesn't. I mean, that's right. You can't get around that one. But the Jubilees, he's got some Jubilees he's just plumb missed. And if he's missed some of them, the early ones, then he's got other things off too. And I've seen where he's got some things off. But
I'm not saying that he's perfect. We both know that he's following a calendar that's whacked out, not perfect, and they kind of got a little egg on their face this year. And they backtracked a whole lot, and he should have taken everything down the way that he said that he would if he was wrong. And just stuck with the facts. So I do agree with you. And I've actually tried to bring this stuff to his attention. Me and my brother Drew both have, and he will not answer us. And as a matter of fact, he gets pretty defensive whenever he does answer me. But but I will say that I do believe he got the year right. And if he got the year right, I think he got the day right too. It's written in stone. Like, it's pretty safe to say that we've had the Sabbath on the seventh day unbroken since they began recording, at minimum the proofs that he has found for the defense of this. So that's just
that could be. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm 100% right. I'm just saying the evidence is there that once upon a time, somewhere in history, in the Julian calendar, that the first day of the week was Saturday, because prior to the Julian calendar, obviously they had a Roman 8-day calendar, and prior to that there was a Grecian 8-day calendar, and so which was letters. They were lettered A through H.
Right, but these are pagans. Like, so I mean, these
guys. Granted.
I don't even count them. You know what I'm saying? Because we're
going
off whenever Joseph Dumont presents his dates. I think the majority of those dates are coming from historical things that are coming out of, like, writings that we would put more weight on, or things that we would put more weight on than a lot of what these pagan guys, who some of them end up being delusional, and they're recorded as such in history, and yet here we are looking at some of their own stuff. So, but I mean, that's just my own opinion on it.
Sure.
I think that's what we're doing here, is like talking.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm just saying that we obviously, prior to the Julian calendar, we didn't have any planetary weekday names. when we can look at scripture, we can see all the weekdays were numbered except for Shabbat. And so, and that's why I say, how do we know for sure that Saturday's Shabbat? All we have 2,000 years of history that use the word Saturday, basically.
Or I can't tell you 100% that Saturday is the Shabbat, but I can tell you with 100% certainty that a 7-day cycle should never be broken. For sure,
I would agree with that. I agree with that. But what if the length of the year actually did change from 364 to 365 days?
Well, I want to say something too about that. Just to answer that right there, because this is so deep. Like you almost got to just pick where you want to, like what you want to answer first. And I just want to point out that what Drew said and what you said just now, we don't break the cycle whenever we do ours, but when we calculate, because this is all calculated stuff. This is intercalated, calculated, count 7 weeks of 7. He tells you to calculate, count 7 weeks of 7. So this is a calendar where we do calculate, but we don't ever break the 7-day cycle whenever we do our thing. And because we don't, whenever we go around on our calendar, it's 364 days that we keep, but there's intercalated days,
Right. Well, so and that's what I was getting at. So, but to date, I found 2 articles that were written by scholars. One of them was using Egyptian text to try to determine some things about the length of the year. And I found these on academia.edu. And starting, I meant to email those to you, and I didn't get around to that today. I'll do it, or email you links to them or something like that tonight. But they both indicate that there was a physical change in the length of the year at about the time of Joshua's long day. One of them using the Egyptian texts. These scholars have been looking at these Egyptian texts for several years, and they couldn't get but one or two dates out of 12 or 13 or 14 that would line up. Well, this other pair of scholars come along there and they said, what if this is a 364-day year? Well, when they did that, they got all these dates to line up but 1 or 2. And so, clearly the calendar is a 364-day calendar. Enoch and Jubilees both say, don't add to it. Don't take away from it. Keep exactly 364 days. So if we keep exactly 364 days, what do we do with the other day? What do we do with the other getting earlier in the seasons? That's the problem. That's the problem we're all having.
I don't understand how we're earlier in the season if the spring equinox brings the spring.
We're not. It's just a different way of looking at it, but we're not.
Let me say it this way then. If you keep strictly 364 days, so for instance, let's just say you start March 20th last year. Okay, that means this year you'll start, if it's not a leap year, you'll start March 19th. Next year, if you keep strictly 364 days, the following year you'll start March 18th. The following year you'll start March 17th or 16th, depending on where the leap year is. So you're getting earlier and earlier in the seasons. And that's what I was saying. That was the first group that I know is doing that. They're keeping strictly 364 days. They don't add anything to it. They don't take away anything. They keep strictly that. And I know some people that are doing that.
But the only reason it shifts back going the other way too, that's the reason why NASA does an average of March the 20th, and that's the reason why we intercalate back to the middle of the week when we do our calculations back into the same week, is because you'll end up adding a week if you don't. But I don't want to say it works itself out, but it works itself out, with where that is. So it does. It goes on both sides of day 15, out and in. You can, if you go by these moon cycles. I did it. I looked it up. These full moons that it talks about in year one, and them lining up with the Qumran text 320 alpha, I believe it is. They do. They move in and out. I'm looking for my dates right here. Okay, so let me just give you an example of, just so that me and Drew went on to Stellarium, and we started at 88, and the full moon happened on the 3rd. 91, it happened on the 29th. In 94, it happened on the 26th. In 97, it happened on the 23rd. In 2000, it happened on the 19th. In 2003, it happened on the 17th. In 2006, it happened on the 13th. In 2009, it happened on the 10th. In 2012, it happened on the 7th. In 2015, on the 5th. In 2018, on the 30th. In 2021, on the 27th. You see those 3 years? It's jumping, 2 and 3 dates every 3 years at a time. So that's kind of,
and that's what I was saying earlier. That's correct, but that does not follow the equinox. I mean, what you said, you said NASA tells us this. We can go out and do the shadow stick method, and it will match what timeanddate.com says when the equinox happens. It matches. I found it. It happens every time. And
I
so,
hear you. No, I'm not doubting that.
And that's what I'm getting at. If you do that, the equinox comes a day after. The first year it'll come a day later. The second year it'll come 2 days later. The third year it'll come 3 days later, and so on and so forth. And so the equinox doesn't match those moon cycles right now. And so what I'm getting at is if there was literally 364-day year once upon a time, and it shifted because of following the wrong calendar. Jubilees talks about, if you follow it, and then Enoch right here, I just read it a while ago. Those are those prophecies that may have been fulfilled, and that we've lost these things and lost knowing when the beginning of the year truly is. I don't know. It's something to think about for all of us. I mean, you guys are presenting what you're doing for the calendar, and that's great. I have no problems with it. I have a problem with what I do in one regard, but I have a problem with a lot of things in the calendar. And I love this calendar because I know it's right. I know it's the right biblical calendar. I just don't know how to implement it. And you all are in the same boat, to be honest. We're all honest about it. We're all in the same boat. None of us know the exact way to implement it. And so let me ask you this question. It's like I said a while. Excuse me, real quick. It's like I said a while ago. Last verse in the book of Judges. You guys are doing what's right in your eyes, and right now I'm doing what's right in my eyes. And I have problems with what I'm doing. To be honest.
So I got a question. Sure. Do you think there was ever a 364-day calendar in the world's history?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yes, I do.
So how do you interpret Enoch 72:1 then? So I'll read it to you. The book of the courses of the luminaries of heaven, the relations of each, according to their classes, their dominion, and their seasons, according to their names and their places of origin, and according to their months, which Uriel, the holy angel, who was with me, who is their guide, showed me, and he showed me all their laws exactly as they are, and how it is with regard to all the years of the world, and unto eternity, till the new creation is accomplished, which endures till eternity.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so how I see that is nothing has ever changed, and it won't until the new Jerusalem comes to earth.
I get that, and I mean, it says unto eternity. I get that, but then you get other verses that says that the year's going to be short, and everything's not going to appear in its time. And I'm not saying a contradiction here. Maybe there's something, because none of us, we don't have the original Hebrew Enoch. The main one we have is Ge'ez and Greek, and I don't know how to read any Greek, any Ge'ez. I have no way to even know how to translate words or find words in Ge'ez. So we're working from a document that that's not. It's got flaws in it. It's got holes in it. I'm
But
not detracting. You know.
I'll tell you what
So go ahead.
my opinion on the shortened seasons that we see in Scripture are we're going to have some warm winters or some cold summers. That's how I see that season change that we see in Scripture. The equinox is never going to change. The sun's location and position and circuit will never change. So as long as we can view that equinox, nothing will change for us. But the planting and harvesting coming in early or late based on their seasons may change.
I think that's a good point.
I can understand that. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, and especially from biblical, because everything's based around harvest, planting and harvest.
Right.
And so
And doesn't it say something in Genesis about there'll be seed time, there'll be summer, there'll be harvest time, and there'll be winter, and for as long as the earth exists. Right. And then don't we have another scripture that says that I believe it's in Job, and I think that he asked him, "Can you break my contract with the sun? If you can, then blah blah blah." But
isn't there something in Revelation about season or about the weather being confused or something like that too? I have to look this up. I don't know.
I see. Whenever I read that in Enoch, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, these guys are these guys are knowingly switching off of this calendar, and they are going to get off in what they're doing. I don't read it where it says everybody. I see it where it's talking about these children who follow the moon, and we know that not everybody did, based on the writings that we have. They indicate very strongly that not everybody went over to that. And so, and that's like why we even have the Qumran cave, Dead Sea Scroll writings.
Right. I would agree with you for the most part, except for most of the world has been on either the Julian calendar or the Gregorian calendar, which is a solar lunar calendar. They've been on that for 2,000 years or close to 2,000
right,
years.
But they're clearly in rebellion. I mean, that has more to do with that than it has to do with the legitimacy of the 7-day week and the calendar. I mean,
I get. Pardon me for interrupting. I understand.
Go ahead, Butch. No, go ahead.
The thing, I understand exactly what you're saying, except for all of us have lost the calendar because we're just now getting the calendar back after 2,000 years. It was found here 50 years ago, 70 years ago, and so now we're trying to learn it and try to get it back. And
I totally agree with you. I agree with you. I do. Yeah, you're right about that.
And
totally.
that's what I'm getting at. So could it have been lost? And I was asked the question, I don't remember which gentleman asked me the question a while ago, do I believe that there was literally a 364-day year? Yes. So if there was, what do we do now with a 364-day calendar and a 365-day physical year? Because obviously
doesn't the 365 days come in with the stars?
Well, that's what
say again?
That's what Aaron. No. We had Aaron Butch come in and talk about that.
Gave us some pretty good proofs with the math and everything. I mean, it's not something to scoff at.
How the circuit of the moon is 354, the circuit of the sun is 364, and the circuit of the stars, if you watch them go around in a year, it takes 365.25. So
that's not correct. That's not correct. Okay. Pardon me for interrupting you.
Go ahead.
What happens is the sun is 365 and the stars are 366. And basically the stars, they'll do a star day, it's called a sidereal day, and that's 4 minutes, a little over 4 minutes less than a 24-hour day, which is the solar day. And so I did this. I spent.
Is it 4 minutes less or 4 minutes more?
It's 4 minutes.
I thought it was 4 minutes faster.
It's 4 minutes less because it travels faster. The stars travel a little bit faster than the sun.
Right.
So I went through this. I spent a few nights going through Star Charts app
So every day the sun comes in 4 minutes later than the stars do, is what you're saying.
Well,
To its starting point, the stars get there 4
it,
minutes before the sun gets there, or is it the opposite?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't really happen like that. It's well, or yeah, I guess yeah. Pardon me, it is like that. Yeah, yeah. So what I spent a few nights going through a star charts app, and I was writing down every day when the sun would rise and a particular star would rise. Well, and when you go through that and you write down every day of it, then you find that one day somewhere in the middle of the year, that same star will rise twice in the 24-hour period of time. It'll rise twice in the time that the sun rises. All the rest of the times it only rises once when the sun rises, but it's gradually working its way faster and faster. And then one day at midnight, for instance, using the Gregorian day beginning, at midnight it rises, or well, let's go when the sun rises at 7 in the morning. It rises at like 1 minute after or before the sun rises, and then it rises again the next day before the sun rises. I mean, I can't explain it for sure, but it rises twice in that 24-hour period of time, which it doesn't usually do that. And so it's just, and I found that the sun coming back to the equinox is 365 days, and the stars will match 366. So that verse in Enoch that says the sun and the stars bring in the years exactly, that's correct. Now here's one thing to think about. Let's look at a verse in Enoch chapter 74, verse 11. Because this is one that I think we all need to look at, because there's something to this, and I don't know what it is. We can take, it says, and the overplus of the sun and of the stars amounts to 6 days. Now, if we take out the semicolon there, it says 6 days in 5 years, because there's no punctuation in Greek or the Ethiopic or the Hebrew. But so that could be saying something there. But if you continue on reading, it goes on to say 6 days every year come to 30 days, and the moon falls behind the sun and the stars to the number of 30 days. Well, how do you get 30 days in a year? And actually, how do you get 30 days? How do you get 30 days in 5 years? And that would have to be 6 days every year to get 30 days behind. But Enoch talks about how in 3 years that the moon has 1,062 days. So there's something about that verse that I think would help us all to figure out how to. I think that may be a missing piece to figure out how to keep the calendar.
If I may.
Let's see. Okay, go back to, in the version you're in, go to chapter 73 then.
Hello?
I'm in an R.H. Charles version, but go to chapter 73:11 then.
I'm trying to figure out how I back up.
Okay.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you're reading the Lawrence Charles version. I'm sorry. Somebody said, "Can I hear you?"
Yeah, Jose.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got the book, and it says thus I saw their position, how the moons rose and the sun set in those days. And if 5 years were added together, the sun has an overplus of 30 days, and all the days which occur to it for one of those 5 years when they are full amount to
Okay, you're reading
364 days.
is that the Richard Lawrence version? That sounds like the Richard Lawrence version. Yeah, but you got it right here on the screen, 73:11.
It's the
At those
R.H.
times there.
It's the R.H. Charles.
Okay. Well, it's just different editors. They write Charles a little differently. So okay, so that's it right there. I think there's something about that verse that would tell us something if we could actually decipher what it's actually saying. Now 354 days is 6 days short of 360 days.
Look, didn't John Mittens talk about this verse? Am I correct in saying that?
Do what?
I do not know.
Man, do you remember John Mittens got like 30 hours of teaching on this stuff? And I'm almost positive he goes right on over this stuff. Like I'm
On a video? He did it on a video?
He did. He had his little paper, like that he put in front of the camera and his projection screen and his dry erase board.
Uh-huh.
No, I mean, his information was good. I'm just saying. I think that he covered some of this, as far as like saying that he had deciphered what it meant.
At those times.
Well, it'd be worth seeing and watching and learning. If you can, if anybody can find that video, share it through email or something, all of us, and let's kind of check it.
Toby.
Yeah.
Can you pull it up and find out?
Oh my! Look, John Mittens had, like I said, it's like 30 hours. Like, I mean,
I can contact John and ask him directly.
Yeah, John will tell you exactly where it's at. But he's got a lot of information. I wish that I could just pull it up and go right to it, but I don't believe that is possible.
Or we could call John on one day.
Can we phone a friend right now? Can we do that, Pat?
Can we call him right now?
Come on, Sterling, dial him up and let's put him on the spot.
Oh yeah, by the way, you're live on the internet.
Yeah, one of my lifelines.
I'm for real. I don't have his number. If you give it to me, I'll call him.
I don't think I have his phone number yet. Or I don't know if I do. Wait, I have to look. But I don't think he would appreciate it.
We can just ask him a question.
Contacts. Let me see.
I think he probably told you to call me whenever. I love talking about this stuff, and I'll talk whenever anybody wants to talk.
He said contact him.
Ah, okay. Let's make good on it.
At oh, wait a minute. No, I don't have his phone number.
Okay, so that
I've contacted him.
Can we call him through Facebook? Call him through Facebook. People do that to my wife.
John Minton.
Well, here's the thing about that. That verse is telling that the moon comes behind. Now, 6 days every year would be 354 days versus a 360 days. Which and I will say this real quick. We tend to read the Dead Sea Scrolls and Enoch and Jubilees as 30, 30, 31 days. Well, all the months are 30 days long. So it should actually be read more like 30, 30, 31. And I hesitated for a reason. I paused between the 30 and the 1 for a reason. Does that make sense? So the 4 intercalated days are really not counted in the months, but they are counted in the years. And I think
what about
the
pattern?
Go ahead.
Okay. What about the pattern that we see in the priestly orders where we have they repeat every 6 years? So we got something like that going on here. We got. Wonder what happens every. I'm trying to do it in my head, and I'm not able to.
Well, that priestly cycle, it talks about Gemul in the 1st year, Shekinah in the 4th year, Gemul in the 7th, Shekinah in the 3rd year, and so on and so forth. And that's laying out, a Jubilee cycle and all the signs that are in it, and the signs of Gemul and Shekinah. You take that Jubilee and you figure out, how many Gemul and Shekinah years there were, and it's that many signs, and it'll tell you so many signs on the release. The year of the Shemitah, the release. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wonder if it's connected deeper like that in a pattern, and it's something that you would have to literally be learned in the Yahad in order to know these type of things that they were in.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, we got way off course, by the way. because we were talking about this duck fragment because somebody just brought it back up. But if we go back there to, oh yeah, we were going to go on to talk about in Enoch chapter
77.
right here. It's chapter 78, verses 6, 7, and 8. Has anybody got it handy?
What is it?
Enoch? Chapter 78, verses 6, 7, and 8. Or I guess I put 77, depending on which version I was reading.
Well, let me ask you something before we move past this, since we're still on it. All right, it says,
okay.
In 14, it says, for the moon alone, the days amount in 3 years to 1,062, and in 5 years she falls 50 days behind. To the sum, there is 5 to be added in 62 days.
Right.
And in 5 years, there are 1,770 days.
Right.
So the moon is, this day 6 in 8 years amount to 2,000.
Right. That's 10 days behind the sun each year, or behind the 364 days. That's the 10 days each year. So that's what I mean. That verse back
I'm
there,
just wondering how we're falling behind if that's how it is. Like that's just, I don't know. I'm just trying to ration this together.
Because right now the sun is not doing 364 days. It's doing 365 days. That's how we're falling behind.
And you've counted that? You've observed that we're right at 365 days?
Yeah. I mean, when I've done the shadow stick, finding the equinox, yes, it's absolutely 365-day year.
Sun up.
Well, I've done it looking for the equinox. It's, oh yeah. I mean, there's 365 sunrises in that from, between the equinoxes.
So one reason why we're questioning this is NASA will tell you that a day is 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. So by removing that 3 minutes and 56 seconds, you're adding a day to the year.
No, NASA tells you that a sidereal day is 23 hours, 56 minutes, and so many seconds. That's the stars rising. That's 366 of those a year. It tells you that a solar day is 24 hours. It's give or take a minute. It's a little bit, it's a minute longer part of the year and a minute shorter the other part of the year. But that's what they tell you, and that's what it is.
Oh, and that's observable in like when I lived in Alaska, because half the year you're gaining a minute. It'd
right.
be about 7 minutes. It fluctuates, 7 and 6 minutes, but
right.
So you're gaining a minute about every day, and then the other half you're losing. So that would kind of line up with that.
Yeah. So that's and so when you read NASA or you see NASA, you got to understand sidereal day and solar day. Sidereal is the stars. Solar is the sun. Is the sun.
So when we're watching for an equinox, what are we watching for? The sun, right?
Yeah, you're watching for the sun to cross the celestial equator.
But you're saying the sun is a 365 day from equinox to equinox.
Right. Yeah, it's not 364. I mean, because if you do the little method I told you about finding the equinox earlier, if you do that, you're going to come up with matching everything that the websites say.
Okay, how many years does it take to get back in sync with 365 days? What do we got to do? Like the moon's 354 every 3 years. We added an extra month to account for it. So with this extra day on the sun, how are we rectifying that?
Well,
if it's there.
Yeah. Well, when the fragments in the Dead Sea Scrolls that talk about the sign of Gamul, the Otot fragments, the sign of Gamul, and the sign of Shechaniah.
Yep.
They lay out a 294 day 294 year cycle.
Yes,
And
yes.
And that will match, that will come back matching the solar. How was it? It's been a while since I've even studied that.
Okay,
it's been quite a while.
I can tell you a 294 year cycle of 6 jubilees. This is the cycle that plots a rare occurrence, the service of the first priestly division, named Gamul, on New Year's Day at the beginning of a jubilee period. 294 years would pass between the occurrences. The scroll writers believe that this situation reprised that of the 4th day of creation. The only text that mentions this cycle is Calendar of the Heavenly Signs, text 71.
Okay,
but
so
listen to this. But listen to this.
That.
In the Western world, we take the calendar for granted, but this is the first century in history in which all major cultures use the same calendar. Even quite recently, travel across certain borders in Europe entailed a 13-day shift in the date. Only in 1923 did Greek embrace the current Gregorian calendar. France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Luxembourg had adopted it in 1582. The Russian Orthodox Church and several Middle Eastern Christian groups still reckoned by the old Julian calendar, now fallen nearly 14 days behind the Gregorian. So the Julians fallen 14 days behind the Gregorian. These differences are not something that we really fight about today, but they used to fight about them back then. So, but right there, we have that. Whenever they move off of the solar calendar, they do fall behind, and this is just a small portion in time, that they've fallen behind 14. So I could see how that would be out of their season.
Yeah, let me interrupt you real quick though. The Julian calendar's ahead of the Gregorian calendar because the Julian calendar literally figured 365.25 days, whereas the Gregorian calendar figures 365.2422 days per year. So the Gregorian calendar is a little bit shorter. So, and that's what happened in the 1580s. But I know what you're saying. A lot of countries didn't adopt the Gregorian calendar right off. They waited. I mean, even America, we didn't exist in the 1500s, and so the Gregorian calendar took effect in America in the early 1700s, if I remember correctly, maybe even late 1600s. I just don't remember offhand. But what they did is everybody went to, in 1582 or whatever it was, everybody went to sleep on the 15th of the month, for instance, and it was a Thursday. They woke up on Friday and it was the 2nd of the month. So they took out a bunch of days because that's how far the Julian calendar was ahead. Whatever day, however many days it was, I don't remember offhand, but that's what it did. So, so the Julian calendar actually ran faster or longer than the Gregorian calendar, than what was actually observed in history by the sun. But that's neither here nor there.
So the 294 year cycle is what we were talking about, and I just wanted to add that their calendars don't even match what they say. So how can you really put a lot of stock into? Well, they had a 7th day as a first day. You know what I'm saying? So kind of one of those things.
Right. Let me say this: that the 294 day or the 294 year cycle will match 293 of our current years. It'll match. So that kind of goes back to what you were saying in that article you were just reading from. I don't know where you was reading that from, but it would kind of match that.
Right.
So what that means is that every day of the calendar year goes through our seasons, through every season of the year, which goes back to what I talked about Enoch chapter 82 or whatever it was a while ago in Jubilees. I don't know. I mean, and this is good that we're having these conversations because this helps us all try to find or at least think of other things to search and try to see if we can harmonize things. And somebody mentioned John Minton earlier about he's got something on that very verse in 73:11 or 74:11, whichever version you're reading. It'd be worth seeing. I see that the numbers given there is 6 days behind. Well, we know that the 360 days and 354 days. I mean 354 days of the moon. which is what we currently see today, is 354 days, give or take a day now and then, of the moon. But the 360 days minus 6 gives you 360 or 54. And then that times 5 years, that gives you 30 days. So what is it about that? Is that giving us a hint of that we already intercalate? I don't know.
Let me ask you something, Butch.
Sure.
You're pretty studied on this, and I don't ask people who are not studied on this question. So I'm very eager to hear what you think. I did notice that you said that Joseph Dumont, you believe that he missed a couple of Jubilee cycles whenever he does his count to bring us up to 120 Jubilees from the time that they exited out of Egypt to the current time that we are in right now. And he's saying that in, 2040 or 2044, we're actually going to be going into our next, our 7th millennial day reign. That's whenever that begins. And that's like kind of his whole message with everything that he does. The summation of it is that we're only a few years out at this point, and so we better get, to doing what we're supposed to be doing. So, right. But I personally, after looking at all this stuff in stone per se, that I gotta say that I'm not one to argue much with where he's coming from around that time, especially since there are several sources that get different times around that. We've got AI sources going out in the 2050s. We have Tesla telling us that it's in 2060. We got there's multiple sources that have been looking and trying to calculate this out, and they all are landing around the same time. They're all beating around the same bush. And so I am wondering, some people are in the 2030s. I mean, I've seen multiple, people, who think that we're in those 7 years of tribulation, and and so we're going to be, somewhere sooner than 2040 with the millennial reign. Butch, I say all that in order to ask you, where do you think that we're at on that time scale, like is in terms of when we're looking down the millennial reign?
Well, I was talking to Sterling about that a little earlier today, and I don't know. I just don't know, and I don't even want to speculate right now. I do know that we are seeing something that's worldwide, that's never happened in history, that we've seen worldwide, things that are happening right now. So I would say it's getting close. There's no denying that. It's not just like it's happening in one country or a couple of countries or whatever. It's happening worldwide. And so with that in mind,
is it a Matthew 24 moment where like we're all seeing it, don't be worried about it? Or is this like that small window after Lucifer was let loose and we're coming upon like judgment day? Like, can you speculate either way on that? That's kind of where most people are at, is they're trying to figure out which one.
I would say we're at the moment where he's saying, you'll know the seasons because of the of the fruits bearing and all that stuff. I would say we're right there. We're not. I don't think Lucifer's been turned loose per se right now. I mean, we know that the demons and devils out there already, but I wouldn't say we're in the 7th day by any means, or the millennial reign. I wouldn't say we're in that right now.
Okay. Yeah, so there's some people who think that we are there. There's a ministry called New Earth Restoration, and if you go and you look at what happened in 70 AD, some of that's right there in 24 of the 24th book of Matthew, and so they present a very compelling case, and they're extremely learned. They follow the same calendar too. Matter of fact, their ministry, they refer to it as a Yahad, and so like they're as close to these Dead Sea Scrolls as you can get, in regards to most people. So I think it's very interesting, where they put time, where you put time, where we put time, and I'm like you, I'm not exactly positive, but I think that Joseph Dumont's work speaks for itself, and I do put a lot of stock in it because not very many people have gone to that length and thrown it all out there like he has, and I've seen him in, doing his teachings in real time, and people hit him with all kinds of stuff. And he's like, let's put it on the calendar and look. And I'm telling you, man, like, dude, pretty much I've never seen it not land right. Like and he's not editing this stuff. Like it's landing right. And it works,
Well,
And so
let me say this, because I've looked at Jules Dumont's work a lot too, because I've been working on the biblical chronology for almost 9 years, and I thought as of Thanksgiving Day I had it completely done. As of Thanksgiving this last year, I stayed up all night long because I got on a roll, and I thought I got it finished. And I had the Shemitahs, I had that, and I seen that Joseph was correct on that. I've studied his work, but I come up with some new information recently that I've got the Jubilees off. So anyway, but
how could so how far off are you though? Like if you got the Shemitahs right, that just means your 1 and 7 were reversed, or what's going on?
Well, that means that somewhere I'm off on the wrong Shemitah. I mean it's following the wrong Shemitah.
Well, okay. Look, I need you to stop right there because we need to dig into this, because we got some stuff going on real time this year. And like, I want to know what you're thinking before we get off into something else. We are in a Shemitah year right now, according to the calendar. And you're saying we're off on one of the Shemitah years. But whenever we look at this calendar, I haven't overlaid it with the preceding thing. But in Gamal, we're getting that same thing going on here, like where it's first year. So
let me interrupt you. Sorry. I did.
Go ahead. I'm asking you. Yeah.
I might have stated it wrong. I didn't. I meant that the Jubilee. I'm off on the Jubilee. The Shemitah. We're ending in a Shemitah right now. It's coming up in March. It's going to be ending in March.
And is that at the end of a 21-year cycle? Is that what we just ended a 21-year cycle, and we're going into another 21-year cycle?
21 years. What are you talking about? 21 years.
Okay, so that whole full moon rising in Gamel on the first day of the first month.
Okay,
that's where I'm going.
Okay. With that, that's what this Duke fragment is real important about, because it's not talking about a full moon. That's the whole purpose of that deal. So when you read 4Q 321 and it says in our English, it says it rises in the center of the sky at the base of the vault, in other words, the horizon, from evening to morning in Gemul. And people are assuming that's talking about a full moon. That's what this document is all about. It's showing the evidence that it is not a full moon.
What is it?
Where it's translated as new moon.
Studied moon, isn't it?
That picture again where I showed that picture again. That picture again where I showed the full moon and the day after the full moon and the Duk.
So the Duk is the first phase of the waning of a full moon.
The first time when you could actually see a shadow of the waning, yes. And so that means that cannot be, and the Duk never happens on the first day of the year.
Happens 4 days after.
That cannot be that.
It happens 4 days after?
Say again?
It happens 4 days after?
What happens 4 days after the Duk?
And then what you said, the Duk it's 4 days after the first of the year. Isn't that what you said?
No. It's 2 days after the full moon.
Okay, so all right, so look, we're still on the same page here, because if we go here and it's talking about that, we're not getting a full moon exactly on the 20th. We're getting it on either side of it. It's just close enough that the other people who say, well, no, last year was the 7th year and we're going off of this, we can rebut that and say, no. But I mean, we're close enough that this might be a Duk this year. What I'm saying?
No. I'm sorry. I'm not making myself clear. You kind of missed my point here. My point is that the first day of the year was not anything even related to a full moon. It was a sliver moon. That's the sign of Gemil and the sign of Shekinah. Now consider this: a Reb doesn't mean evening as we think of it. It means even, mixture, mingling. That's how it's translated in Scripture, and our own English language. the word evening.
Eventide. Yeah, you're right.
The ing is a suffix that's added onto a verb to make it into a noun. So the verb is even. And we literally have 2 mixings a day, or 2 evens a day. We have one before sunrise and one after sunset. I know that kind of makes people think a little differently, but that's the way. We have 2 twilights. We just kind of call one of them twilight and one of them evening or sunset. That's just the way we've done with our English language. But and this whole document is showing the evidence, all the evidence that shows that word is not talking about a full moon. I mean, that it's not a full moon on the first day of the year. That's what this whole document is about. And so 2019, now here's one thing I will say. 2015, there was a new moon on the equinox. 4 years later, for instance, today, if say today there was a new moon on today, 4 years from today, there would be a full moon the same day. Give or take a day. It will vary, by hours up to a day. But that's the way it works. And so everybody's talking about 2019 was the sign of Gimel, because they're reading that English where they put in parentheses in there the full moon in 4Q320. But if we go, has anybody got 4Q320 handy that they can show it on the screen?
Is it in this document? 4Q320?
No, it's not.
Toby, you got it? I'll stop sharing. I'll look for it while whoever gets it, put it up. 4Q, which one? 4Q220?
It's 4Q320.
All right, while everyone looks for that, please say hello to Sister Katrina that came on with you guys.
Hey, Katrina.
Hey,
Shalom,
Katrina.
sister.
Hey, bud.
Shalom.
Shalom.
How you doing, Katrina? How's them kids doing tonight?
They're doing great. They're doing
Good.
great. Thanks for asking. I missed you, Butch. We had so many conversations. Nice to hear you.
We've had a few.
Mom, it's gonna be Theo's turn.
Okay, so tell me, which part of 4Q320 did you want to look at? I got it, but I'm going to take a picture of it and share it on my screen with y'all.
That'd be perfect. Yeah, I think it's verse 5 in 4Q320.
Okay, is that fragment 1 that you're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm working from memory here, but yes, I believe so.
Let me see if I can get it up here for you. I mean, if it's not the right one, I mean, we'll keep working it. So just see if I can do this and become a smart guy.
If we get into this another time, I'll have to get my stuff all prepared, get my stuff where I can do it, where I can share it on the screen and all that stuff too. I'm a little lost right now. Didn't get prepared for this.
It's all right.
I was really just supposed to get to know you, Butch. So
yeah,
I think this is a crash course.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm getting a crash course for sure.
Hey, Butch, while he's getting that 4Q320 pulled up, we've all give our opinion, but I'd like to hear yours on the validity of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Oh my goodness, I don't think you can get away from them. I think think about a verse in Scripture that talks about. I think it's in. It's in one of the minor prophets. It talks about that the Dead Sea will start having living fish in it and living things in it. It will give life. Okay, well, let's put that in a little more, not in a spiritual way, that the Dead Sea is giving life spiritually by the fragments and the texts that are there. It's awful quiet all of a sudden. So in other words, what I'm saying is that the Dead
Spiritualized.
Sea Scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls are pretty awesome.
Yeah, I would
We-
agree. The
they-
reason why
they
I brought
should-
that up, there's
Go ahead.
a lot of people that are they're afraid to look into the Dead Sea Scrolls. They've got this preconceived notion that they're Gnostic gospels, or they don't know where they come from. There's not proof that they're even legitimate.
I was talking to Sterling about this earlier today on the phone. They legitimately have that preconceived idea because it's a legitimate idea, because whoever started translating the scrolls and all that, I think there were some people out there that propagated that this was a sin, the Gnostic Essenes, to get that propagated so people wouldn't read it. I think
you're right.
And I was talking to Sterling about this on the same note earlier today. Enoch chapter 102. Enoch chapter 102, I'll paraphrase it as best I can. It says that they will corrupt my words, but when they write down my words truthfully in their own languages, it'll be a cause for much joy, because as they do, that more books will be added unto them. Then let's add to that with fourth Esdras, where Ezra goes out in the wilderness and he's given the word, and he's telling it to these scribes, and they're writing down all the books, and he writes out, depending on which version you read, 99 books or 200 books, depending on which version it is. So what? But then Yah tells him these 20-something books are for the general public; they're for everybody. But you keep these others back for those that are wise among you. That paraphrases exactly what Enoch says in chapter 102. So the Dead Sea Scrolls, that's some of these books that are for the wise among us.
Can you see that? Can you see my screen?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, right there. Okay, on yours it's verse 6. It says on the 5th day. Well, before we go there any further, did everybody kind of get what I was getting at when I was talking about the validity of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the other writings that Scripture, Enoch, and fourth Esdras talk about?
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
So, yeah.
Okay. I mean, because it's just something that just.
Would you start one up? Because this is what we've been talking about the whole time, and then here you are, just one more sentence past it.
Yeah, well, let's just go here to verse 6 though, because I got something to compare that to. It says, on the 5th day of Judiah is the 29th day of the lunar month and the 30th day of the first solar month. Okay, now bear in mind that's talking about the 29th day of the lunar month, which is a conjunction moon, if you will, dark moon, on the 30th day of the lunar month. It says it's its first phase. Well, in Enoch, it says, actually it says, yeah, the 5th day of Judiah is the 29th day of the lunar month. Anyway, but then with Enoch chapter 73, verse 4 and 5, it says, and thus she rises, and her first phase is in the east, comes forth on the 30th morning, and on that day she becomes visible and constitutes for you the first day of the moon on the 30th day, together with the sun in the portal where the sun rises, and 1/2 of her goes forth by 1/7 part, and her whole circumference is empty without light, with the exception of 1/7 part of it, the 14th part of her light. That's talking about the 29th day of the lunar cycle and the 30th day of the month. And if you go back to my charts up there with the green and white charts, that day it's the 30th day of the first month. So you can't get a sliver new moon or a dark moon or whatever it is on the 30th of the solar month and have a full moon on the first of the solar month, because it's a 29 to 30 day cycle, alternating cycle on the moon.
But hang on. Let me ask you something. Before because so I'm just going over this and I'm just seeing this. So I just got to throw this out there. Look, so based on my readings, whenever I go and I read this out of 73, this is talking about how we start our year in regards to the moon and when it starts versus the solar years. This starts on a 29 or on the 30th day of the solar year. Right before it. So that's how we get some of these days that we do. But you're saying that this is going on after the beginning of the year. So it's and this is in Jediah, and you've overlaid this with the 24 priestly calendar.
Oh yeah,
Or the courses of them, and this lined up for this. I mean, because this right here, this is the first year of that 21. Of a 6-year and a 21-year cycle, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Well, the first year of a 6-year cycle. I don't know about 21 year because I haven't checked in anything 21 year. I mean, 21 year.
That's.
I don't know where that comes from. I mean,
21
okay, so
year.
The 21
year. I think you've heard of it. It's how the full moons. Well, you don't think it's a full moon, but if it's how the full moons line up. 1 4 7 2
3 5 2 6.
Yeah, 3 5 2 6 takes a lot. So like this has to line up with that, and I'm just wondering like how if you did that, and if so, can you refute me on this not being the first part of the year for them opposed to is Jediah in the first part of the year?
No, Jediah is later in the year. Gamul is the beginning of the year, and I guess I haven't. I need to see. I need to try. Let me see if I can. I'm trying to figure this out. So let me.
It might be saying that. Right. So look, it says on the 5th day of Jediah is the 29th day of the lunar month and the 30th day of the first solar month. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Like it's saying that it's the first day of the solar month. If you look at the writing, I don't know if the parentheses are added. I don't know. I don't know.
Let's see. Okay. Right here.
So I'm just trying to understand. So so verse 6 is saying that this is happening at the same time, the beginning of the year. This is how it starts. And Enoch is saying that as well.
Well, verse 6 is I'm trying to share a picture right now. Okay, can anybody see that picture while I'm showing the priesthood?
Let me stop sharing so that you can pull yours up.
Only one person can share at a time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't know.
Go ahead.
So what do I need to do? I need to do something different?
I've seen this before.
No, you did it.
Okay. This was now the chicken scratches on the very left margin. Don't worry about that. That was me trying to, when I first learned this calendar or first read of it, I wanted to prove that I could fill it in without all the blanks that had been filled in by the scholars, that I could recreate it. And so that's what this was. But this is Gamul. I'm showing Gamul the first year. And we go here to Jediah in that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down. And you see that number 29 right there matches with the 30. That's the 29th day. That's one of the dates that are mentioned in that 4Q321A and 4Q321 or 4Q321 and 4Q321A. That's one of the dates it's mentioned in there. It mentions a 29. And that fragment just talked about it. The 29th day of the lunar cycle on the 30th day of the solar cycle. Can you all see that better now?
I'm trying to catch up mentally, like looking at it.
I think that Toby
let me ask you something.
Butch need to talk.
Butch, let me ask you something real quick.
Well, let me finish this real quick. Hold your thought if you don't mind. What I'm saying is that 30th day right there matches what Enoch 73 verses 4 and 5 say.
Hang on now. Which is the 30th day? Is this the 30th day?
The red is the solar. The black is the lunar.
Let me try to do this. Are you talking about this?
Oh,
well, I gotta undo it now.
Oh, you just circled something.
Yeah, I circled. Yeah, now I'm trying to take it off. Can you see that it came off?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I seen it came off. So let me leave it alone, my end alone. You do what you got to do. Because I guess I moved it when you circled it. I apologize.
Okay, so let me all right, it finally came off. Let me try this one more time. So you're talking about this day right here.
Well, you're highlighting, are you circling the one on the, are you circling that one right there? Or are you
I'm circling the red one.
Okay, the red one.
The red one right beside the black one next to Jediah. Like, that's the one I'm circling.
Right
that's
there.
The one you were talking about?
No, I'm talking about this one here. That's what that fragment's talking about right there. Because
you're talking about the 29th?
I wrote 29 is the lunar day, and 30 is the solar day. That matches,
I see what you're saying now. Okay.
Right there, that matches Enoch 73 verses 4 and 5.
Okay.
That's what
now, did you do this for 6 years? Keep running it out for 6 years?
Yes. Let me see if it'll. I don't know if it'll.
Okay, well, let's match up something else. On the first day of El Sheba in the 29th day of the lunar month, on the 29th day of the third solar month. This should be
1, 2, 3.
So is that the 229s right there?
Right there, 229s.
On the first day of El Sheba in the 29th day of the lunar month.
Well,
second column.
that is that's the first column I've got per day. Because everybody else that's ever done this, they have to take 2 lines for each priest because they put. I didn't change the numbers because I got Sabbath in the first column. So you see it in the second column when you're looking at it right there. So you're seeing it. I don't know how to circle this.
This is a college class for
Look on the very left-hand side of your screen. There's a little pen. It's all the way down in the corner. It says annotate. And then it's got some options that'll pop up whenever you click on it. Would you mark that for me?
So, yeah. Let's see. I guess I'm marking it yellow, I guess. I don't know.
On the first day of El Sheb, Eliashib in the 29th day.
So let me see. I got
Eliashib on the 29th day.
Let me see if I can change colors. There we go to red.
Of the third solar month.
There, I see the yellow.
Right. Yeah, can you see the red now?
I see the red, yes. I see yellow.
That's supposed to be a full moon.
No.
What day is that on our calendar?
That's what I'm saying. That's a new moon. And that's what this whole fragment or this whole document that we're looking at here, this Duk document, I'm presenting all the evidence that's showing that that's a new moon, not a full moon.
Can you tell me what month that is of this year and what day? Can you tell me that?
No, not really.
Is it in our
without having, and this is something I said earlier, without having the chronology 100% and knowing what year we're in from creation, we don't know right now.
That's what John Mason says.
A lot of people,
hang on right there, though. Hang on.
Excuse me.
A lot of people have assumed that, but we don't know.
Excuse me.
Sure.
I have. Can you unshare? I'm going to share what Toby just asked for. I have that right now.
Okay. So. Okay. I did I unshare it? I think I did.
Yeah. You did great. You did great. Okay.
So you have that date?
Yeah.
Have it for me?
I have it right here, and I'm about to share it right now.
Look, I'm pulling Stellarium up right now. We're gonna put this into action in real time. I want to see this.
Let me know when you guys see it.
There you go.
Okay, I see it.
February.
Okay, you see it now?
Yeah, I see it.
That's what is actually right now at this present moment with the full moon, the crescent moons, and all that.
Right.
So you guys, that's what Toby wanted to see.
Okay.
Well, on the first day of El Sheb is the 29th day of the lunar month. On the 29th day of the third solar month. So I want to know what day that is, the 29th day of the third solar month in this year that we're going into, 24. That's what I want to know on this Zadok calendar. Can anybody intercalate or do the math in their head for me to get to that point?
Well, that's what I was kind of saying a while ago. If we don't have the right understanding of that word duk, we're going to be off. And that's why I've tried to present the evidence that it's not talking about it's not talking that duk is not related to a new moon. It's been translated wrongly as new moon. And with that in mind.
Okay, we start our month.
Well, we can look at this though.
Like, this is not something we can't look at. We start our first of our months is in Abib, so that's in April. Or no, that's March the 20th. If we go 90 days out from that, the 20th, what's 90 days from the 20th? It's gonna April, May, June. Is that June 20th? Is that what that is? Is that what I'm getting? So somewhere around June 20th.
It'd be real close. Yeah, it'd be real close.
Okay, let's pull up my time and date. I'm not sharing my screen yet.
That's the reason I shared that document, is because it needs to be read so people can get the grasp. Because right now, everybody's kind of going into it blind right now, not knowing what I'm trying to show on that document. And
go for it.
Because granted, I didn't get it out there to Sterling till today, and so I was trying to email. Do what?
You can put that back on with that document that you were showing.
Okay. You want the priestly cycle, or you want the actual PDF document?
The one you were just showing right now that you was trying to prove a point.
That priestly one.
All the priestly cycle, all that was doing was trying to show that you can't take the 30th day of the first the first solar month and have a sliver new moon and then go back to the first day of the year and have a full moon. It won't work because that's 30 days. We know that the lunar cycle, it's going to be 29 or 30 days, and we know that the lunar cycle is 29 or 30 days. And so if you have the 30th day of the first month is a sliver new moon.
Okay, look, I got it. I want to share my screen. Let me share my screen with y'all real quick because I want y'all to see this. It's going to make me exit this thing and do it again. Let me, hang on. I think that do a screenshot is Command Shift 3, maybe. Let me try. Okay, I got a screenshot of it. All right, let's see. I just need to make this smaller. Okay. Yes, check this out. Okay, so you claim that it's a veiled moon or with a sliver, right? That's what you're saying this should be. All I did was I went 90 days out because it says month 3 from where we are whenever this happens. And so I just want y'all to see this. Can y'all see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah. Looks like you're showing stellarium.
I am. I'm showing stellarium. And I want you to see, I went 90 days out. So that puts us at the 20th on the 6th month. And then I want you to look at that. It says illuminated 98.8%. According to this document, I ain't missed it yet. And this is not a veiled moon. This is not a sliver of a moon. This is a full moon. And this lines up with exactly where the calendar says that we're at. This is a second witness. I mean, I just went from the first one down to the second one. So, I mean, we could test another one if we want to, but this is two in a row. This is established a matter.
Well, I'll tell you what then. Well, yes, to a degree, but I'll tell you what. Go back to 2015, because this is what I was saying. 4 years later, you're going to get the exact same phase. You're going to get the exact same opposite phase. So go back to 2015. And
okay, so this should do this every 21 years, right? So what does 2015 get us? That gets us 9 years. What are we doing at 9 years back from here?
No, wait a minute though. You're starting what you're doing. Or you're starting at a wrong. If you okay, I'm not saying you're starting, but I'm saying if a person starts in the wrong location, assuming that this word means something, the scholars say that they're even divided. And I used that document, that PDF that Sterling was sharing a while ago. I used the actual texts of the Dead Sea Scrolls of other texts in there, and there's other witnesses in that document. I mean, it's it's 40 or 50 pages long. I don't remember how long it is, but I've used.
Well, let's do
evidence.
another one then. Let's do another one then. On the third day of Bilga is the 30th day of the lunar month. So the third day of Bilga. This is just moving right down to verse 8 in our verse 9.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't see it. Let me unshare
I've got
my screen.
Okay.
Can you pull up that?
You got Toby all excited.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
Here's the deal. Like what you're saying, Butch, you're saying that you got it all right, but you're telling me that you're not right. But it's literally right here. So I'm trying to understand this on that level.
Well,
because you did it, and you just proved that what you're saying about this veiled Duke moon is you're proving yourself wrong, but you did it, and you proved yourself right with the work. So I'm just trying to understand what you're getting at, because we know where the first day is. We know where the first and the seventh year are. We know where the Jubilee year is. We know where the Shemitah year is. This lines up with the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm just trying to get inside your brain and understand how you got everything right, and yet you don't believe that it's right. And it even shows on Stellarium that you were right. Like whenever you put it in there live for everybody to see, you were right about it in everything you did. But you're saying that you're not, and that your work, you're saying, contradicts that it's a full moon. So I'm just want to understand it on that.
Okay. Level. Well, I mean, we're trying to have a discussion here, and yet, I mean, I can tell you're fired up on it. You're passionate. Okay, that's fine. My point is that whole document I created there, that PDF document that Sterling was sharing, it needs to be read and studied, because it shows all the evidence that it's not talking about a full moon. Because if you go to the new moon, you can get the same exact results that you're sharing about a full moon. I'm telling you, it happens.
I agree that you're right. But the thing is that this doesn't. Okay, the version that I have in front of me is translated full moon, and it lines up with a full moon, not a veiled moon or a new moon, or whatever language that we're using with it. But it lines up with this, so that's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay, wait a minute. What exactly are you saying says full moon? Tell me exactly what you're saying says full moon.
4Q320 Mishmarad Alpha fragment 1 column 1.
You're saying 4Q320 fragment 1 column 1. So they got full moon in parentheses, right?
No, it doesn't even say full moon in there. It just says that
I thought you just said
it's just giving you a date. It shines forth in the center of the sky at the base of the blank from evening to morning on the 4th day of the week of Gamal in the first month of the 4th year. It doesn't even, you know what I'm saying? The whole thing is talking about it being a full moon.
Okay, just a minute. Just relax a minute. Okay, this is what I'm getting at. And this is what I shared a minute ago. A Reb, evening, that's translated as evening, doesn't necessarily mean the even after sunset. And what I'm saying is, there's enough evidence in everything I put there that's saying that is not talking about the full moon. And if you read that whole document, that's a PDF that I shared with Sterling, that he's got it in that group, there's all kinds. I didn't use just my work. I used a lot of other work that's out there that studied this. There's a writing called the Babylon.
Would you pull up that chart again?
You have access to that, Toby. I gave you access to that drive, and all his stuff is in there. It's under a folder.
Okay, but can we show it to everybody?
Yes. I tried to give it to you because I wanted you to read it, but
Toby,
I know, but you gave me less than 24 hours. You know what I'm
saying?
Right,
I know. It wasn't your fault.
Here we are, but this is huge, guys. I'm not even fighting y'all. I'm just trying to point out.
I know.
Here we are.
I know
in real time,
well
and Butch's work is proven out whenever I put it into Stellarium.
But I think Butch wants to show you something else.
Priestly courses that he laid out. That's all I'm trying to show.
Okay, hang on just a second, Toby. Okay, you granted. I said a minute ago that I just got this to Sterling today, or last night. So granted, you haven't had time to really study it and look at it. And so all I ask, let's just take a back seat on this. Everybody needs time to study some of this stuff and look at it. because
Yeah, we could come back
you,
together and that's what I think, Butch. I think Butch, you
Okay.
and Toby,
I don't understand. I just don't
can talk.
understand. We are looking at it. Like
what,
I don't get
Toby?
why we
No,
push
Toby,
pumping the
wait a minute.
brakes.
Okay, what does the scripture say that it's foolish not to hear both sides of the argument? I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but doesn't scripture say something about that?
It is the
I just
folly of man. Yeah,
right, but you're not understanding what I'm saying because you think that
No,
we're like arguing, but we're not because
no,
your work. That's all I'm
Toby,
trying to say here is I'm listening to you, and your work actually shows that what is written here, just randomly twice putting it in, it shows that it was right, and that's what I'm getting at, and it kind of disproves the theory or the theories that you put forth in your writing. Is all I'm saying.
You're not giving me enough. You're not giving me the same chance to speak like you are, and I'm not, and I don't want to argue this. All I ask is go read the document because of the evidence I presented. Read all the stuff in it, the evidence I presented, and what this is. And I know what you're saying, and this is what because of the way it's read there, and in most versions. And I said even in the Wise, Abeg, and Cook version of the Dead Sea Scrolls, they tell you right. The scholars are divided at the meaning of this word, and when they say that, and they said that they've chosen to translate it as this, so it makes, and they say in there that it makes 4Q320 read different than what it ought to if it depending on how they translate that word duk. They tell you that in the commentaries of both versions that are the English versions.
Right, but we can prove what's right and what's not right. That's the thing. It's like, is it a full moon or is it not?
My point is, you claim you can prove it, but if you haven't looked at the other side, you haven't seen the evidence of the other side of the argument yet, or the other side of the debate. I just
look at the sky. Can we just look at the sky, like, and look at the dates and line them up and go with that? Like, isn't that enough?
Okay, but you haven't gone back to 2015 and looked at the same thing, and it would show a new moon. It'll say this. It'll show the same exact thing that you're seeing right now with a full moon. 4 years earlier, it'll show the same exact thing with a new moon.
Butch, you keep saying 4 years earlier.
But listen, but where is 20? Why is 2015 is 9 years away from now?
No.
That's not a 7, and we're on a Shemitah year, and the following year from a Shemitah year is year 1. And according to Fragment 1, Column 1 of 4Q320, there are signs in the sky that we can verify, and we have literally verified the first 2 of them on Stellarium that they're there and that they work. But if we go back to 2015, that's a 9th year away from a Shemitah. So that's like a year 2 or something. Why that doesn't concern me in regards to what this text says. I'm looking for a 7th year or a 1st year. And this is telling me that we are on a Shemitah year. And so that's where I'm getting at with all this. I'm not real sure how to connect 2015 to the rest of this. So would you please explain that to me?
Why don't you go there on your screen, Toby? Share it.
Okay. The sign of Gimel, the sign of Gimel, the sign of Shekinah, the sign of Gimel, sign of Shekinah, they don't always fall on a Shemitah year. Bear in mind, you'll have Gimel the 1st year, Shekinah the 4th year, Gimel the 7th year, Shekinah the 3rd year. They don't always fall on a Shemitah year. You got to find that sign and what that sign is. So we go back to
that's what we're doing. We literally just lined up 2 of them randomly, and it worked for the 1st year for this 2024 year that we're going into. That's what I'm saying is like we can.
But I'm also saying 2015 matches what the duk.
But it's not a 1st year. That's what I'm saying. So how does 2015 count? Like where do we put these at?
Who's to say we're in the 1st year? Because that's what you're assuming, that we're in the 1st year.
Everything's lined up on the calculations. Most other people's calculations don't work. This has worked in every regard. So, like, why should I go against it whenever it's hitting on every single day that it's supposed to? Well, it doesn't make any sense to go against it. It hasn't been wrong yet.
Then you don't go against it. If that's your choice without looking at the evidence to the contrary, then that's fine. You go right ahead.
Well, where does it tell me in the Dead Sea Scrolls or any writings that 2015, a 2nd year, and it lists out all of my courses, and it lines up with my 1st year of calendar full moons that should line up with the year the 21-year cycle and the that every 6-year cycle.
As I said, if you don't want to look at the evidence, that's
I'm
fine.
asking you because I don't have time to get into it. We're talking about it. I'll go read your stuff, but I mean,
we can't discuss it. Obviously, it's apparent we can't discuss it right now because I can see where you're locked into what you're saying, and you keep interrupting, and that's fine. I just if you want to read the evidence, there's plenty of time to go read it another day. If you don't, then that's fine too. I don't mind.
Yeah, but we're talking about it. Like we're talking about it. So like, let's talk about it. Don't put the burden on me right now to go read your stuff. Like, let's talk about it. Tell me about your evidence. And I'm asking very specific questions about it, you know, and I know that that's kind of putting you on the spot, and I apologize for that. But I'm just saying, if you know these things, then this is where I'm going to go look for in your evidence.
I've been trying to share the evidence, and every time I share it, then it gets off into another path, and then ends up going into stellarium and looking at full moon and all this.
That's the same track, though. We're looking at the evidence. So you haven't told me how 2015 lines up with the first year in order to make it relative, so that I can disregard what the Dead Sea Scrolls say and listen to Butch Fawcett and what you say. Like, that's what I'm trying to understand here.
Okay, my point is, disregard 2015, 2019, 2020. I said a while ago that 4 years, you know, if you have a new moon today, 4 years later, you'll have a full, no matter what day, you know, whatever day of the year it happens.
I agree.
Mike is messing
I
up.
agree.
Okay, so now once again, that will vary by a day, give or take a day.
I agree.
Okay, so we're all on the same page there. So without the proper understanding, let me say this.
But we're not on the same page. We're not. So I just need to point out where we are so we can marry it real quick before you say whatever else. It's just real quick. You told me that on the 21-year cycle, which is 147, 25, 46, or whatever that is, like right on the 21-year cycle. You're telling me that you don't know where we're at. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, I said I don't know what the 21-year cycle is exactly. Other than that,
but you told it to me. So it's that at 3 weeks and the full moon.
You're the one that said 21-year cycle. I didn't say that. Other than it's a 3 Shemitah cycle. That's all I know about 21 years right offhand. Because the Shemitahs will not match the 6-year priestly cycle except for every 42 years. Because that's the common denominator between the two. So the 6-year priestly cycle will match the Shemitah cycle every 42 years, not 21. As far as the 6-year
so if you just add up those 3 weeks of years, it's 21. It's 7 times 3 is 21. Like so that's and it repeats over again and again and again.
If you go the Duk cycle, the 3-year Duk cycle with the Shemitahs, it will be every 21 years. That's correct, but not the priestly cycle. The priestly cycle will be every 42 years.
Okay,
because see, the priestly cycle is a 6-year cycle.
The priestly cycle is every 6 years, right?
The priestly cycle is every 6 years. The Duk cycle is every 3 years. And then the Shemitahs is obviously every 7 years.
So they're going to line up. Like they are going to line up, right? Like,
well, what you would have is you would have 1 year in the, one will match Gemul, but 121 years will match Shechaniah, not Gemul.
Did you say 120 will match Shechaniah instead of Gemul?
The 21 years wouldn't necessarily match Gemul every year. It won't match Gemul every year. I'd have to sit down and think about it and draw it out. But to match Gemul every 21 years, it won't happen. That's a 42-year cycle with the Shemitahs.
Okay.
And so
we're not really disagreeing on anything except that we went to this date and we looked at it, and I mean we're pretty much doing the same thing here. Like,
yeah, but what I'm doing is if like I said, the scholars in the 2 English translations of the Dead Sea Scrolls, they admit based on the understanding of what that word duk means, it's going to mean how 4Q320 is actually truly understood. That it may not be, and the evidence is it's not talking about a full moon. No, just before you jump off there and run on that full moon. My point is the evidence is there. If you look at that document, I've got scholarly works in there. It's not just my work. I've got scholarly works in there. I've got another scholarly article. I've got screenshots from the Discoveries of the Judean Desert series of books. That's a 21 volume book or series of books that's all about 1,000 pages each, and all scholars. And there's one volume that's dedicated to nothing but calendar fragments. And I've got those pages in there about this word dukkha. It's in that document. So that's why I say take the time. We step back away from this right now. We can resume this another time. If we step back away from this and everybody read the evidence that I presented, because I did not just use my work. I used my work and I used lots of other work that's out there already. So I ask you to study the document and research it and see the evidence that I presented. I mean, I've even got a website in there of one link or a link to one article that's written by Jonathan Bendall, I think it is, that it's about the Babylonian lunar 3. You'll see the similarities of this whole cycle. It's titled the Babylonian lunar 3. Not to say it's pagan, it's titled the Babylonian lunar 3. And they have some words in the Babylonian text that they know what they mean and they know what they were, and the exact same thing that it matches this duk cycle exactly. I mean, it's more evidence of what this actually is. And so that's all I'm saying. Go read the document. If you don't want to, that's fine. No skin off my shoulders. All I'm doing is sharing. Okay. All I'm doing is sharing all the evidence there, Toby.
I will, but I'm going to look at the sky too. And I put a lot more relevance on the sky and what we observe there than I do on what any scholar says. And so if they're disagreeing with what the sky says and what matches up to this document, I don't even care what they say because they're clearly liars. And I'm not learning from them. Well, but I'll look at it. But if it doesn't line up with this, then who cares? You know.
But once again, Toby, like I said, if it lines up with a new moon and it lines up, in your opinion, with a full moon, but it also lines up with a new moon 4 years earlier, then the problem is you got to find out the evidence of what that word actually means, because you got the choice of one or the other. You got either choice. And I know you say 2015 doesn't matter because it doesn't match the 7. But as I said, the duk cycle, 3 times 7 is 21. But the priestly cycle, 6 times 7 is 42. You can't have.
It's just doubling the number, so it still works. I mean, the math is going to be super close either way.
But you cannot use that fragment where it says Gemul on the first year, if that's the case, because it doesn't always match. It'll match once every 42 years.
Well, we're going on 2.5 hours here, so
yeah.
I do think that's interesting. And Butch, let me just say, thank you for bearing with me. And I played the antithesis this whole time, but you've done a great job. And I do agree with the things that you're saying. I just don't understand how you don't agree with what your work proves out versus what a scholar says, you know. And but I do thank you. And I do want to point out that in regards to what Joseph Dumont says and where we're at in this, it's 4 years off from another guy that studied just like we did. And I do wonder if the 4 that we're talking about here, that 4 years where you're saying go back 4 years and it's the same thing, I'm wondering if that might be the difference. Is, you know, if something to do with that might be how these 2 times of reckoning were to get off.
Right.
You know, in that regard. So I thank you very much for presenting that. I don't want you to think that I'm against you in it all. I agree with most of everything that you said. I just think that proves
I'm
out.
not, I'm not saying that the evidence goes against my understanding of it, because what I understand, I presented the evidence that proves my understanding, that it's not talking about the full moon. And once again, but because I have seen it in the sky where we have a new moon on the first day of the year, but I've also seen it in the sky where we had a full moon on the first day of the year, based on the equinox and the full moon and the new moon. And I'm not the only person that's seen it, because I'm in a Telegram group and I've seen it stated there many times too. They say, yeah,
Somebody's fidgeting with their phone.
because they say in that Telegram group I'm on that, yeah, it flips from the new moon to the full moon every 4 years. They're saying that this Duk cycle flips from the new moon to the full moon. So it would agree with me and you in that case. So I'm not the only one that's seeing this. And so understand that if we don't have the proper meaning of that word, we can get either option of a full moon or new moon. And you're advocating for a full moon, and I'm saying it's a new moon. It's not a full moon.
Could I ask you one other question about that right there? In regards to that full moon, what year does it fall on? Does it fall on a year one, not full moon, but the Duke that you say it's the shadow?
The Duke never falls on the first day of the year. Never. I mean,
but does it fall on a first year?
The Duke never falls on the first day of any year, ever. You go back to those three charts in that three graphs in that document that I produced. That is from the Dead Sea Scrolls. I put those dates in there from the Dead Sea Scrolls, from that priestly cycle that we were looking at a minute ago. I put those. That's exact dates from the texts. I didn't change anything in those. And the Duke never lands on the first day of any year. The Duke is those purple squares on those three charts.
Right. Got you. Maybe I may have just said it wrong. I'm just trying to understand. See the.
So if 4Q. So let me.
Pardon me. Is the first 4Q 320 is the first year thing, and I'm just trying to understand if where are you at on your years? Is 4 years ago your first year? Or did you calculate out or prove out to a first year? Where's your first year at?
Refuse to say where the first year is right now in the priestly cycle, just because I don't have the 100% biblical chronology. I mean, and we can talk about Joseph Dumont's work another time, because Joseph Dumont, if you do the writing, take his chronology and you work out, he shows that Abraham was like 105 when Isaac was born. I mean, he shows it right there, and that's one of the examples. Now I don't remember exactly whether it was 105 or what it was, but he shows exactly that Isaac was born a whole other year than what Scripture actually says Isaac was born. He shows a lot of things off, and if you go through and really look it over, you'll see he's got a lot of things off. But that's neither here nor there. So he has the Shemitah years right. So the only difference between him and I is the Jubilee is going to be in a different location, following a different Shemitah, because the Jubilee always follows the Shemitah. It's just which Shemitah is it actually following.
Right. I agree.
He and I are right on the Shemitah years. There's no denying that. He's right on that, and I'm right on that.
Well, where's your Shemitah year at? Where's your Shemitah year?
It's getting ready to end here in March.
Okay. So that's my disconnect here. Is you're on the same year's understanding that we are, and if we go and we look at your reconstructed calendar that is based on exactly what it says here about the priestly cycle that we just did a while ago, two of the first proofs landed right when it says, and I know that we're splitting hairs on this word "duck," but that's where
Okay, well, okay. Go back 42 years. See if you get the same thing. Because more than likely you won't.
That's very interesting. So 42 years from 2024.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, just you're looking at a very short term thing based on the assumed understanding of that word. Like I said, all the scholars admit they don't know for sure what it means. And I went through internal text in the Dead Sea Scrolls to determine what that word means. Used those as well as outside witnesses. And it only means the only consistent pattern is the duck has to be related to a full moon, as in that drawing, that sketch. And then that makes everything else match where that you have a new moon on the first day of every 3 years. That's the sign that Gemuel and Shechaniah talks about, the Otot fragment. And so somewhere along the way, that matches a sliver new moon.
Hang on, did you say that it flips?
Yeah, it'll flip every 4 years. Based on the when the equinox actually is, yes, it'll flip.
Hang on, will 42 go into 4?
No.
Or 4 into 42?
No, it will not. Not evenly.
Yeah, it's 1.05.
10.5.
10.5. Word. Okay. Very interesting.
I ain't heard you.
We've been on here for a while now.
Yeah. I don't
Maybe
even know.
we should end it here and plan to reschedule and talk about this Duke.
Yeah. I just ask everybody read that Duke text because it's titled. How's it titled there, Sterling? Duke, using 4Q3 or 4Q 208.
4Q 208, 4Q 209, and 4Q 317 to determine the usage of the word Duke.
Right. So everybody read it and read the stuff that's there, and then
it's only 50 pages.
Yeah, it's only 50. Yeah. Some of it's a lot of it's pictures, but and then some of it, the red X's I've scratched out in that because I've got something wrong on that part of it. The red X, the pages with the red X's. So disregard those. But I've got stuff after that and stuff before that. And then read the other texts that are linked in there, or the links to other texts. And then look at possibly looking at the fact that it's not a full moon, that it is a new moon. You'll find that it matches the same full moon will 4 years earlier.
If we do 2020 or 2019?
2015 will show a new on the equinox. Same thing that 2019 did. 2019 showed a full moon on the equinox.
Okay.
Well, maybe we can get John Minton to come back with us too, if you guys want.
I mean, the thing is the English versions of the Dead Sea Scrolls, they put in their bright parentheses that it's a full moon right after that verse. They put in the parentheses in there, full moon. Well, that kind of makes everybody think, well, yes, it's a full moon, but Evareb doesn't necessarily mean evening as we think of it. It could be literally talking about the sun, because when some of those texts in the stuff I presented, some of the articles are saying that particular phraseology in the Hebrew only talks about the sun in other places and in Scripture. The way it's worded and lettered and all that, it only talks about the sun in other places. But I'm saying I'm presenting all the evidence that it is not talking about the full moon.
Somebody's playing with their phone and moving their phone around, and it's coming over the mic. So
I'm using an iPad, so I hope it's not me. I have my hand on it, but I'm not moving it around.
It's gone.
Anyway, so I've enjoyed it. I apologize for ruffling any feathers because I sure never meant to.
No, nobody's.
You didn't ruffle no feathers, brother.
This is the way Toby is.
Well, okay, Toby, we're just going to have to get a hold of you next time and say, hey, wait a minute, stop.
He's excited.
Well, okay. Well, how old are you, Toby?
I'm 37.
Okay, well, that's an age to kind of be excitable sometimes. I'm 62, so I've kind of settled down on some of that excitement sometimes.
I noticed by going back and forth through time on those 42-year cycles that whenever you go the year after that, it flops.
Yeah.
Every 40, is that what you were trying to tell me a while ago, that every 42 years
I'm saying it, I'm
from
saying
full moon to build?
Well, it will flop if based on a 365-day physical year that we have, it flops. It does flop.
So that tells me that we're both right about what we're talking about, but we don't understand the word that we're trying to use.
That's right. And that's what I was saying. That word, the definition of that word means which way that has to be used. And here's what I'm saying also, if we keep strictly 364-day year only, it will always stay the same. It will always either be a new moon or it will always be a full moon, whichever you choose to decide that word means. If you keep strictly 364 days only, not 365, not the equinox, none of that. If you keep strictly 364 days, that will be there every 3 years. And it will be the same every time. Very, give or take a day once in a while. And that's what I'm trying to say. And so, based on what we actually have in the physical year, it does flip. You'll be right part of the time, and part of the time you'll be wrong. I'll be right. And so, the correct understanding of what that word truly means.
Well, I disagree with you right there. It's not that either one of us are wrong or right half of the time. We're not using the same meaning to the same word. We are assigning a different meaning, but we're both getting the same pattern. We're both talking about the same thing. We are just talking about it on, I mean, it's just like, our political system. You have Democrats and Republicans. It's two wings to one bird. This is two wings to one bird here. We're talking about the same thing. We just are not agreeing on the language, but we know that it establishes this cycle. So, I mean, full moon, it doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, whatever happens in this cycle is what that word means. And we both got the same cycle, so like we really agree on this. But, I just haven't studied out to where I can go those every 4 years and make this work. I thought that based on what I'm reading in 4Q320, this only works at the first year of the cycle, whether it's a 6-year, a 42-year, a 21-year, like this is supposed to, whatever year one that is, that's what this lines up with. And that's, and I think we're both saying the same thing here. We're just
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's the 21 years that you were mentioning, that doesn't apply because it has to be 42 years. The 21 years is the Duk cycle with a different priest. In other words, you would have the first year would be the Duk cycle matching with Gemuel. 3 years later, you'd have the Duk cycle matching with Shechaniah, because that's the signs that Otot fragment talks about. That's that Duk. And so, and this is what I'm saying, and this is what I was saying earlier. The pros, one of the pros with a strictly 364-day year is that Duk cycle will match up where it's supposed to every single time. It won't be flipping from a full moon to a new moon and back and forth. It'll stay where it's supposed to be. But that means that our years, we're going to be starting next year a day earlier in the year in the Gregorian calendar, and then the following year we'll start 2 days before the Gregorian calendar, and the following year 3 days before the Gregorian calendar.
Right, but isn't it funny how we both end up at the same time and we're doing it 2 different ways?
Well, no, we're not doing it 2 different ways. We're just
we're doing special math, like you say, and you just go the next day.
Oh, as far as beginning the year? No.
Right, and understanding what's in this document in the Dead Sea Scrolls, we're still getting the same thing.
Right now, I'm not keeping the document. I'm not keeping the calendar as per that document, because I don't know. This is what I'm wrestling with right now. As I mentioned, the 3 different methods to keeping the calendar earlier. And right now, what I do, I leave the 365th day as just kind of a no day. It's just a dead day there. And so, in essence, in all reality, if I'm honest, in all reality, I'm keeping a 365-day year. I'm just making the calendar match from the equinox. And you all are doing, a 360 some day year. You're adding a day here or there, or you're taking some days off. However, you're doing it with keeping it in the same week.
Well, we just got to make sure that we do everything, and we got to get it back to the middle of the week to start our calendar. So,
Okay, so
that's where
we
calculate.
So y'all are doing a separate thing, a similar thing. It's just you're trying to match Saturday as Sabbath, which is fine. I'm not saying y'all are wrong. I'm not saying y'all are right. I don't know, because I'm trying.
Right. I was just pointing out how we both wound up really close to each other, and we can both defend 4Q 320 based on what we are doing, and we're both getting the same thing, So I was just saying how I think it's very interesting.
Well,
you're coming about it from a different direction than we are, but we do all our calculations, they're coming out the same.
Okay, I will say, based on what you just said about you and me coming up the same location with two different viewpoints of it, so you've admitted that. So now, and what I've said is because it does flip based on the 365-day year, and what you're seeing and what I've seen, it flips. It'll flip from new moon, 1 year, 4 years later, it'll flip from full moon to match your cycle and my cycle. And so, with that in mind, and that's based on a 365-day year, not a 364-day year. So if we go back to this document that I've created with all these different witnesses in there and the other text, the additional text that are from other places, and we do this, and then if we were to actually go back and find where a 364-day year actually begins from history, wherever it actually went out of history, then we could actually start observing these signs of the moon, and we would know what years we're supposed to make tithe offerings. Because that's what that means. I mean, we've got two verses in Deuteronomy talks about on the year of the tithes, and we got Amos 4:4 talks about the same thing, the year of the tithes. After 3 years on the year of the tithes, that's exactly what the ODOT fragment. It parallels the ODOT fragment, the OTOT fragment, OTOT fragment. When it talks about the sign of Gimel, sign of Shekinah, sign of Gimel, sign of Shekinah, in such and such a jubilee.
I agree.
Okay. So that's the years of the tithes. And the only way we're going to have that is if we keep strictly a 364-day year, strictly, with nothing extra. That means that we're going to get out of the seasons, though. And this is what I wrestle with, because we have this problem. Because, like I said, none of us know the exact way to implement it. Do we add an extra day here and there to keep right there on Wednesday of around the equinox? Do we just start on the equinox every year? Do we keep? Nobody knows how to do this, and we're all having this problem. That's why we're even having this discussion, because every one of us has this same problem. We don't know how to take care of this issue.
That's why we need to bring people that care about this kind of thing.
Right. We need to be able to look at this and literally walk through it and look at it objectively, and not just close-minded and say, "Hey, this is what I see. This is this." We need to actually look at this, because every one of us have the same problem. Toby, you've got the same problem. You're trying to figure out some way to keep it in the same week. You got the same problem I got. It's just you just got a little different twist on the same problem. We've all got the same problem.
But we ended up in the same place. So, I mean, I think that speaks volumes.
Well, we've ended up, not in the same place, because I'm saying start looking at what your theory on 2015. So we're not at the same place. You have the understanding that fragment 4Q320 is talking about a full moon, and I'm saying that that's not talking about a full moon. And so I presented the evidence. The evidence is there for people to read. If they want to, fine. If they don't, that's fine too. I don't care. I try to share it. If somebody wants it and is interested, I try to share it. And that's what I try to do with all my stuff. I try to share it. I don't have
Well, I
no
do
books
appreciate
written.
you sharing your work.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it too.
I'm one
appreciate
of
it.
those guys that I get it figured out in my head and it doesn't ever make it down to paper. So I don't even have the privilege of sharing. I just go on some YouTube show and argue with everybody about it. Like, I'm just kidding. But I do appreciate your work, Butch, and I
mean,
think it's been a fantastic conversation, to be honest with you.
Okay. And I've got more stuff to share with Sterling. I'll have to email it so he can put it in there in the Dropbox.
There's a bunch of stuff in the drive already. I mean,
I've seen
all kinds of different topics.
I've seen you put a bunch more in there today. So yeah, and but I'm looking. I'd like to see what John Mitten's saying about that verse in Enoch at verse 11 in chapter 73 or 74, whichever it was.
Yeah, I'd like to hear the conversation between you guys about it. I'd
like to see what he presents first, so I can kind of get a grasp of it. And then I can
I'm going to ask him to look at this, give a listen to this, this YouTube video, and see what he says.
What we're talking about right now is this going to be a YouTube video?
It is right now.
It is. We're live.
There's other people watching. There's other people watching this.
Okay. Well, I would ask John to basically look at that text that I put together.
Which text? Because I want to. What was it?
The Duke text.
There was also a verse in Enoch, wasn't there?
Yeah, but it's listed in that text. I presented all this stuff in Enoch in that text too.
78.
It's all in.
Was it 78?
There was 70, 77, and then there was 73, and I mean I presented all that stuff in that same document. It's all there.
Yeah, I'll pass it along.
Yeah, I mean you haven't even looked at it enough yet, have you, Sterling?
No, I haven't. I got down to like 6 pages. That's it. So
yeah. So read all of it, and then if John reads all of it, like I said, just disregard where the red X's are, because I got something off on that, and it don't match up with what I thought it should. And so it don't match
it.
Do what?
He might fix it.
He might. But that's a whole nother way of using some other text in the Dead Sea Scrolls to find the usage of that word too. And my theory on how I was trying to work it didn't work. So I just went through last night and just X'd those out so I could email it to you. But anyway, gentlemen, and
all right, it's been great.
And Katrina, if you're still there, it's been interesting. Toby, I was going to say it was really enjoyable, but my goodness.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you will too now, I'll tell you, but no, that's fine.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be on you, man. I'm intense.
My kids' heads are spinning. Say shalom.
Shalom.
Their heads are spinning up. Thanks, gentlemen.
Yeah. Well, the presenting this evidence orally like this without actually seeing it and reading it too, it's follow. And so, Toby, I understand where you're at. I know what you're saying, and I know what you're defending. I know what you're defending. I can see it. I've seen it. But I'm presenting the evidence. If it's one, if it can be one or the other or both, then there's something that it's not matching. And what I'm saying is, if we keep strictly 364 days only, it will match every 3 years and never flip. Every 3 years.
I'm glad you tarried with me long enough to establish the matter, because I only had a portion of it, and you revealed another side of it to me, so that whenever I move forward and backwards in time, I wouldn't be all thrown off by every 42 years. This thing moves backwards or forward a year, so that it can be either a full moon or one that's not a full moon. And so, at the end of the day, like you uncovered something for me that I had not gotten to yet. And so I do appreciate that. And I appreciate your work, brother. Like I really do. And I'm sorry that
You're
I'm
welcome.
sorry I was so hard on you. My bad,
You don't
man. Like
have
but you did well, dude. Like
you don't have to apologize. You don't have to apologize. And that's why I've started putting all this stuff in some kind of writing, and I put all the evidence there. I put the text without commentaries. I put the text in there. Now this one, I've had to, put some commentary in there because I have to actually work out, the math. So I'm having to show the math. But so I just tried to do that so people can, and I've tried to make it where it's maybe user friendly, where people can understand it. I don't know if I've made it understandable or not. I hope I.
I think that it's understandable for the most part. Like, and you did a good job, brother.
Good. When you get it all figured out, let me know.
All right, I appreciate it. Dumb old construction worker. What do I know?
We're all self-proclaimed dummies here. So like, I eat crayons. So I get it.
Well, I won't say I went that far, but I have eaten a little bit of lead now and then. And gentlemen, I enjoyed it, and thank you for the invite. And you saying we're saying they're going to try to do this Tuesday also?
Yes, we have Tuesday and Thursday. Yeah, Tuesday and
Thursday.
Yeah,
I got Carrie Alexander to come on, and he may have different ideas, about like all this, and I don't know what he knows. So he's got some good things too. I mean, everybody's got their lane.
Yeah, is Kerry on? Is he on Facebook? Is that how you find him, or study?
No,
study
he's
his...
not on. He's not on social media too much. He is a little bit out there. He's a musician, so you can find stuff on his music. And he has made a calendar. There's some YouTubes out there on him, but they're kind of scattered and hard to find.
Okay, so that's how you found out his work was basically YouTube search on his name?
Yeah, I got him from Scott. I met Scott and I met Carrie and I met Bo. Yeah, I met the guys all the same. Actually, I met by butt calling somebody. I butt called somebody and Bo, and then I met them two guys from that.
Okay.
It was just a unique encounter.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to call him. It just happened.
Right.
So I think that was a divine appointment, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I like to look at both sides of everything myself, just to try to weigh them out, and then try to find the evidence that supports whichever side, it supports. Whatever evidence, whatever it supports, it supports. And so I kind of go with that, and that's what I was looking at this and all these other things. So anyway, but we've talked.
Deep stuff.
Great due diligence, brother, and great due diligence. I don't want you to think for 1 second. I don't appreciate all the work you've done here.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for that, and I hope people can see it. And if there's any questions, Sterling's got my phone number. He can share it with you guys, and you guys can call me and talk to me if you want to. We can all talk. And I'm self-employed, so I can take a break to talk on the phone if I need to.
That's awesome. That was why I said the whole purpose of getting multiple people that study, because things will be revealed, or like I said, to help each other in the walk. So I love the conversation with you and Toby. I laughed through the whole thing, but because
I was smiling too. I know that I'm full of energy.
I love the passion that Toby gets, and you can tell that he's got to get to his point, because he'll pull one point and he'll run that point. And I was like,
yeah, well,
I love that, man.
It's hard. It's hard sometimes though when you're trying to have a conversation and one wants to run the point and he stays on it sometimes, so it's kind of hard for anybody to get a word in edgewise.
I'll beat that horse now.
He was like a horse without, well, you don't try to pull that horse.
I'll beat that dead horse.
I'm telling you, my goodness, I know it. My goodness mercy.
Well, I'm glad everybody's laughing about it.
I was talking to a lady up in Washington State here a while back about something. I asked her a question. Well, she went off on a tangent on something, and I couldn't get a word in for 20 minutes. And I said, "Hey, wait a minute. And I had to yell, say, "Hey, wait a minute. I got a neighbor I got to talk to. I got to get off the phone." It took me almost 5 minutes to get off the phone because I couldn't get a word in edgeways. So it's,
that's funny.
yeah.
But
Anyway, so
all
well,
right.
hey,
Thank you,
gentlemen,
Butch. And like I
enjoyed
said,
it. Thank you all for the invite.
well, you're welcome. You're part of the family. You can always come on whenever you want. Whatever's, we're like I said, we're Tuesdays, we're on Thursdays at 8 p.m. and Shabbat. Carrie's gonna be on as normal at 12. So, and after that, Sterling does most of the coordinating, and
Yeah,
I just follow his lead.
Butch, you could get on it on Sabbath too. You could come in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that
You
was,
just
did I
wanna
hear
join
that
the
was,
Sabbath
did I
conversation.
hear that was at noon your time?
Yes, noon Eastern time, yes.
Okay, so that'd be
it's
11 my time.
and we're always live. Like we don't do no pre-recorded because I believe live is where you get more of the understanding. And when people they like to get on and ask questions on the chat. So
Right.
and so everything is recorded and everything is on CC, so closed caption. So Sterling can talk to his buddy.
Let me throw out a little question for y'all real quick to ponder on. I asked Sterling this question today. I said Zephaniah 3 talks about how Yah will restore a pure language, a pure tongue. What do you all think this pure tongue is?
That's a great point. I think it's actually this right here. That one makes sense.
Well, you mean Yahuwah or you mean Hebrew?
I believe Yahuwah's language. That's that because we weren't there. We weren't there.
Right.
And this is all they talked about. When I had to do with Yahuwah was this type of language.
Yeah.
And
So
this
you're
is like
talking
a lost language.
So in other words, you're saying Hebrew, in essence.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
You could say.
So I'm gonna ask you another question then for everybody to ponder on. If I tell you a lie in Hebrew, is that a pure language?
A lie?
A lie, L-I-E, in Hebrew, even in Hebrew, is that a pure language?
That's a good question. I'll ponder on that.
So the question is, the answer is no. It's not a pure language.
Right.
It's a lie.
Right.
So with that in mind, if we go to Enoch 104, where it talks about they write down my words truthfully, the pure language is truth because it says when they write it down in their own languages truthfully. So the pure language is truth. Hebrew may be a dialect that's spoke, but the pure language is truth. And that's what we should all be searching for.
Amen. I agree. I totally agree.
So that was just something to share with people, because that's people get hung up on wanting to learn the Hebrew and say, hey, it's got to be pronounced this way. We don't know. It's so far gone. But truth is a pure language in any language. So anyway, that was my final point.
That's a perfect insight. I mean, it's true. A lie is a lie, and the truth is the truth. You can't you can't fight against the truth. So that's 100. No, thank you, Butcher. And like I said, I'll let Sterling coordinate everything during the week. And as always, you're welcome to be on the Sabbath. I think that would be a great discussion. I mean, if you have time on that Sabbath.
Well, he's got other discussions. I mean, that one's kind of like advanced.
Yeah. It's I love it. I know we all are.
Might lose a few people on the channel. You want to grow.
Well, right? That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it being recorded, man. Because you can go, and I've already done that quite a few times. So so that's what I love about having it recorded. So okay, we're wrapping things up as always. Sterling, you can say your goodbyes, and then we'll go to Toby.
Good night to everybody. It's been
and then we'll go to Scott.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom, y'all. Thank y'all so much. I really did enjoy Butch.
Thank you. Thanks, Drew. See y'all.
All right. Shalom. All right,
Shalom.
guys.
Shalom and good night.
On the Sabbath. You guys have a blessed night. All right. I'll see you on
You
Sabbath.
too. All
All
right.
right.
Bye now.
Bye now. Good night.
I was glad when they said to me, "Come and let's go up to the house of the Lord." I was glad when they said to me, "Come to the house of the Lord." Standing here in your gates again, in Jerusalem. Oh, I was glad when they said to me, "Come to the house of the Lord." Standing here in your gates again, up to Jerusalem, up to Jerusalem, up to Jerusalem. Jerusalem, peace, Adonai, Shalom. Blessing be yours, God peace with God. I was glad they said to me, "Come to the house of the Lord." It's again, come to Jerusalem. Oh, I was glad they said to me, "Come to the house of the Lord." Where the tribes shall land, be it comes to the God of Israel. Come to me, come to the house of the Lord. Come to Jerusalem. Come to the house of the Lord.